So I'll start the regular Sonora City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022 at 4:07 p.m. And we will be adjourning into closed session. But before that, I will do the roll call.
Mayor Hawkins?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer?
Here.
Councilmember Garaventa?
Here.
Councilmember Such?
Here.
With Councilmember Segerstrom absent.
And she will be joining us from my understanding. So, and then are there any public comments before we adjourn into closed session? Don't see any hands raised, and there ain't nobody in the public except for Chris. So we will adjourn into closed session at 4:08 p.m. Okay, I would like to call the Tuesday, February 2nd, 2022 meeting to order. Wait a second. Yeah, February 22nd, 2022 meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. There was closed session and we gave direction. So roll call, please.
Mayor Hawkins?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer?
Here.
Councilmember Garaventa?
Here.
Councilmember Segerstrom?
Here.
Councilmember Such?
Here.
Excellent. We are all here. One is joining us by Zoom, and that would be Councilmember Garaventa. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Such. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before I go to city clerk's reporting on agenda posting, I want to take a moment of silence. I guess former council member Segarini passed away yesterday, and then also or former school board member, and he did everything, Sonora High School Board member, and quite frankly did everything else in the community, Randy Slesha. So if we can just take a moment of silence. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then I also wanted to throw out there, because I didn't do it last time, something I think that was near and dear to all of our hearts, if you were alive then, in January 28th, 1986, was when the Challenger exploded, and of course the Columbia in February 1st of 2003. So I'm wearing my NASA t-shirt tonight. I knew there would be a big group here, and just to show my support. So, okay, so next is City Clerk's report on agenda posting.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, February 17th at 4:00 p.m.
Excellent, thank you. Approval of the agenda. I have one item I would like to see moved just for time's sake, and that was item number 11, moving that to the first part of the new business. Is the council okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, cool with you, Joe? Okay, I see the thumbs up. Okay, excellent. So I'll probably forget, and somebody will have to remind me, of course. But okay, so public comment on non-agenda items. That means items that are not already on the agenda. The public may address the council on any item of public interest not otherwise on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the city. No action may be taken. Matters to be addressed may be referred to city staff or placed on subsequent meeting agenda. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute presentation, and this is things that are not on the agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Lovatomi County Day will be April 23rd and 24th. Mark your calendars. It's a great time to join the volunteers helping to clean up the county and the city. Last year, I had the opportunity to cut weeds at the Heaven for Kids playground next to the library, and I'm looking forward to doing that again this year. You can sign up to volunteer at lovetuolumnecounty.org. That's lovetuolumnecounty.org, April 23rd and 24th. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on non-agenda items? I think I know this guy.
Good evening, council members. Excuse me. Haven't done this for a while. I'm Dave Wynn, and I'm here to talk about the California Preservation Foundation. I don't know if the city is a member of that or not, but I would like to highly recommend that you look into that. They give out awards for historical preservation. That could be something. I'm very, very proud of our county and our city. I think the city has done a wonderful job over the last century, essentially, at least during my lifetime, and I was 76 last week. So they do give, right now they're accepting nominations for awards for the, from the Preservation Foundation. So if there's anybody that has anything in mind that might qualify for, you know, historical preservation in the city or the county, I'd like to recommend that maybe we would enter that and see what we can get some more recognition. So that's, hopefully you can do that. Yeah.
Could you repeat the name of the organization again?
California Preservation Foundation.
Foundation. Okay,
Foundation.
thank you.
Mhm.
It has a website, I assume?
They do.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else for non-agenda items?
Good evening. My name is Don Nessel. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I was cruising around the burn area off of Stockton Road the other day looking for what trees or shrubs or whatever might have not been killed or burned up. And my thought was, I was wondering if there is any emphasis on when the city would want to try to bring their properties back. And I know there's a mixture of properties there, and I've talked with Jeff Sargo about the property right around his area there. And I would like to volunteer to be involved in the effort to bring it back, because it looks pretty crummy when you come into town to have that big burn there. If nothing more, we could plant a line of trees along the road so you can't see through. But I'd like to be part of whatever, whether it be shovel work or planting or species finding of, you know, those kind of plants. So anyway, I really would like to see something happen with that, and that we put an emphasis on restoring and bringing that back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nessel.
Yeah. Vision Sonora.
Anyone else on non-agenda items?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members and members of the public. I'm Katie Dunn. I'm the president of the Sonora Chamber of Commerce, and I do apologize for my phone ringing just a little bit ago. Sorry about that. I'm here to share a couple things. First off, the Sonora Chamber has taken out a special use permit for Lineberg Street for second Saturday starting in March. And it's through February of 2023. This is a way for us to expand second Saturday into Lineberg by the tap room, that little section there. So March 12th, we're going to be doing a pop-up art mark there. So look for more information on that. And I'm also going to take off my Sonora Chamber hat and put on the Visit Tuolumne County hat now. I am the president, board president for Visit Tuolumne County. And the last time that I came before you, I shared some information about Madden Voyage reporting. Just to refresh your memory, it is it's a platform that provides multiple areas of intelligence. It's visitation intelligence. So it's what it does, it's a geo-tracker of cell phone data, and it identifies top origin markets, visitors, average length of stay, the most popular locations, repeat visitations, and so forth and so on. In December, downtown Sonora was the #1 location, followed by Yosemite, and there was a huge uproar of applause. And and I'm here to say that in January, downtown Sonora was the #1 location, followed by Yosemite.
Wow.
Huh? Yeah. That's all I have to share tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Anyone else for non-agenda items? Mr.
Just a
Handel.
suggestion for all of you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and public, March 12th. You mentioned that. March 12th is also the Two Care Dinner after a long hiatus due to the pandemic. And it's on the website, and I suggest you all attend. We'll have some great speakers, and
12.
it's a great event. Support Two Care. And for those who don't know what Two Care is, the Tuolumne County Alliance for Resources and Environment. It's probably the last of the organizations like that in the state, where there used to be 9 or 10 of them. But it's active and viable, and they have a lot of great plans, and they have a great program. So I suggest you join us. Appreciate it if you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Derek Nunes. During the last meeting, I spoke with you in regards to my Public Records Act requests. I brought a copy of my emails between myself and the City Attorney's Office for each of the council members tonight. You will see a section highlighted that reads, "Finally, with regard to your clarification that your request encompasses correspondence between the city and the City Attorney's Office, please note for future requests that in almost all cases, such communications will be protected by attorney-client privilege and exempt from public disclosure pursuant to Government Code Section 6254 Subdivision K. In this case, there are none. As I told you last meeting, I reached out to the employees and council members in Angels Camp to try and verify that my request had actually been fully disclosed. One person I spoke with told me that they were contacted by the attorney's office in regards to my email, which seemed to contradict the statement that the attorney's office had given me about there being no documents. Mr. White responded last week to that saying this.
Email shared with White Brenner. We provided that to him as a courtesy copy. The public is not entitled to attorney-client privilege information. Your communications with me as your attorney are confidential, and they aren't subject to PRA. But in the complete abundance of, to be very transparent about it, we actually provided him that information. So if anything, we've been more transparent by disclosing more things than we're required to, because those were all the records that exist.
So on one hand, I'm being told no such documents exist. And on the other hand, the council and public was told that I was given these documents in some kind of abundance of transparency that never happened. I understand you cannot take action, but would request council to look into this matter further. I would also ask council to waive attorney-client privilege and have all the requested documents provided to me in an effort for true transparency. Finally, during the last few meetings, I've been asking council to answer my question regarding if they had reached out to the City of Angels Camp prior to hiring Ms. Eads. I've yet to receive an answer, but Mr. White set a precedence and made it clear at the last meeting that you can answer, but not take any action. I did receive a response, however, from Councilmember Moncada and Angels Camp. Instead of asking you all for your answers yet again, I will just read her response to me. Hi, Derek. I was not approached by the Sonora City Council about your email or for a recommendation of Ms. Eads. To my knowledge, the council as a whole was not approached either. I will follow up on your request. Regards, Isabel
30
Moncada.
seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nunes. Anyone else for public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. Oh, do we have one more?
Out here, yeah, out here in Cyberland.
Just to let everyone know, that's on Zoom. What I'm doing is the public that is in the council chambers first, and then we go to the Zoom members. So thank you, BZ.
Okay, a couple meetings back, you had a postcard from Japan. And sorry, I don't have a translation, but I've got enough of it to kind of get the gist of what it is. The building on the left, the red one, is the Kirishima Jingu. That's a shrine. And the one on the right is Kagoshima. In Japanese mythos, the Empress Amaterasu, is the sun goddess, had a grandson, and he came to Earth and became mortal when he married a princess, and that's where the emperors came from. So anyway, at some point, hopefully I can get you actual translation. I've been a little busy, so anyway. And while I'm thinking of it, there is a book that was published in Japan that happens to have a guy wearing a T-shirt that says Sushi in Sonora. If you remember the Kyoto House, somebody gave him the shirt. He happened to be wearing it.
Oh,
So
that's great.
anyway, that's it.
Thank you. What he's referencing is, about a month ago, I received a postcard from our sister city in Japan. And again, there was no English on it, so I couldn't read it. So thank you. So, okay, is there anyone else I'd like to speak on non-agenda public comment? Okay, let's let the fun begin. Okay, so
you busy?
oh, yes, okay, sorry, I thought she put her hand down. I apologize, BZ.
No, just turned gold.
Okay, so we're going to
Okay.
the Zoom call. So BZ, you are first.
Well, I was going to reference speed bumps on North Shepherd Street, but Dave Wynn brought something else to my attention that I wanted to share with you. The California Preservation Foundation and Dave's suggestion of finding some projects that might be suitable here in Sonora. Many of us know that there is a Jewish cemetery that's right behind the old jail. And it has fallen in disrepair. It was vandalized within the last 15 or so years, and it's been locked up forever. It didn't used to be locked up. When I first moved here, you could go into it and walk through that lovely place where there is just such an amazing amount of history. About a year ago or so, there was a family gathering there that was prearranged with the organization that oversees that property. And some ancestors of the Bears came to give homage to their ancestors who are buried there in the cemetery. A rich part of Tuolumne County, and particularly Sonora's history, are the, I will say, several Jewish people who came here as immigrants during the gold rush period and became some of our most prominent businessmen here in Sonora. We have several streets that are named after those very people. We have storefronts that still bear their names. And I think that the preservation and the public access to the cemetery would be a really profound gesture for our city to take on with some effort in the part of the community, and trying to also establish a strong contact with the organization that oversees that property, so that we can let that be one of the glorious highlights of visiting Sonora. That is, it's my understanding, and I stand corrected if I'm wrong about this, that is the oldest existing Jewish cemetery in the state of California. And I honestly believe that it is a diamond in the rough that we have ignored and forgotten, and just, somehow or another just assumed it didn't even exist. Sometimes you talk to people and they have no idea that it's there. I have many friends who come to visit the area, some of whom are Jewish, and they have no idea that that is in our community, and several of them have expressed an interest in having an opportunity to see it. So that might be the type of project that we could take on that would suitable to the city of Sonora. Thank you.
Thank you, BZ. I believe next is Pat.
Hi, I just want to commend Ann Segerstrom and Colette Such. I've been watching meetings for a long time now. And at the end of the meeting, during the report of the council members, they talk about the various meetings they've attended over the previous couple of weeks. And they attend just a lot of meetings and have a lot to say, and I find it really interesting. Jim Garaventa also attends meetings, but I have never heard Mark Plummer or Matt Hawkins mention any meeting that they've attended. And I'm wondering, I was under the impression that all council members get assigned at the beginning of their term to attend certain meetings. So I'm just wondering why Matt and Mark do not ever report on other meetings they've attended. Maybe one day this could be explained. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on Zoom for non-agenda public comment? Okay, so moving on to the consent calendar, and with that,
Did you approve the agenda? Did we approve the
oh
agenda?
yes, we approve the agenda.
Okay.
We moved number 11 to the first part of new business.
Oh.
So,
Oh, crap,
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
I seem to be missing quite a bit tonight.
Okay, so on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be voted on in one motion unless a council member or member of the public has a question or wishes to discuss an item. In that case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Approval of disbursements in the amount of $153,038.15 for payroll inclusive of employee salaries, employer and employee taxes, and retirement contributions. Miscellaneous voluntary employee deductions, holiday pay, and other adjustments, including retro pay. Authorize the possession and consumption of beer and wine from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on June the 11th, July 9th, August 13th, September 10th, and October 8th, 2022 in Caulfield Park during the Sonora Chamber of Commerce Second Saturday Art Night Concert Series. Item number 4, authorize the closure of Bradford Street from Washington to Green Street and in possession and consumption of beer and wine from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. during the Sonora Chamber of Commerce's Second Saturday Art Night, March 2022 through March 2023. Pull my clip off here. Approval of a letter of support to Caltrans for the Tuolumne County Transportation Council Gold Rush Shared Use Trail Project, authorizing the mayor to sign the letter. Adopt Resolution 222-2022B, authorize the remote teleconferencing meetings of the City Council and its committees and commissions for 30 days pursuant to Government Code 52953E Brown Act provisions. And then number 7, under consent calendar, is approval of the City Council minutes for August 2nd, 2021, August 16th, 2021, September 7th, 2021, and October 18th, 2021. Any members of the council want to pull any of these off the consent calendar and discuss separately? Looking at Jim first. Okay, then I will ask for public comment. Any public comment on these consent calendar items? Okay, I will bring back this to the council.
I just had one comment on the support for Caltrans. I found the letter, rather cryptic. I didn't really understand about. I happened to run into Tyler Somerset, who, and I noticed Darren Grossi was on the call. And he might want to expand on it a little bit, but apparently there's a lot of layers of boxes that need to be checked in order to move forward with a project like this. Because I didn't understand about underprivileged Jamestown and how somehow people on 108 were all of a sudden privileged because they had road disbursements. But apparently it all goes with how you have to write the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciated that input, because to me it was just like, what?
Well, my understanding on this particular issue is that it essentially, gives us the ability to apply for funds, do other things to make safe ways to walk back and forth. I mean, I know walking down Stockton Road, as my wife and I do a good bit, it can be a little hazardous. So this makes it a little bit easier. And I've talked to 2 supervisors that were.
Well, the underprivileged part, or the
Yeah.
the economically disadvantaged. Oh, sorry. The economically disadvantaged part and all of that needs to be, I guess, folded into it, and I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I was like, what? I don't understand either. But it's basically how you have to write the letter to beg the state of California for the tax money you've already given them so you can beg to receive it back. So okay. So are there any other questions? I'm looking at Jim, make sure he'll start waving at me. Okay, good. Okay, so I guess I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Plummer, second by Councilmember Sagestrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Jim. Thank you. Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such. Aye. Councilmember Seegestrom,
Aye.
Mayor Hawkins.
Yes, aye. I apologize. We've been going back and forth from Zoom to open meetings, so it does get a little confusing. So, okay, on to new business, and we are going to move item number 8, or I'm sorry, move item number 11 over item number 8 just for the sake of time, and nothing else is implied or inferred. So, item number 11 is authorize the loan of the Mallards Honor Roll Monument to the Tuolumne County Historical Society's Museum World War II exhibit for approximately 6 months.
Thank you. I will take this item for our city historian, Pat Perry. She is very proud of this history of the city of Sonora and supports the partnership with the Tuolumne County Historical Society in donating the Mallards Honor Roll Monument to their World War II exhibit. We'd like to thank you for your consideration of this item and recommend that you approve this loan to the Tuolumne County Historical Society for a period of approximately 6 months. Thank you.
Okay, any council member questions? Okay.
It's a great story for those of, I mean, maybe Melissa could just outline the story behind it for the public, because
Sure.
those of us who read it said, okay, this is great,
And it
but
has my mother in it.
So I will not do it justice. In fact, this is why I was hoping it would be on here, and I apologize for not coordinating with Pat to be here. But her history of Frank and Teresa's store, and it was owned and operated as a grocery store, their service to the community, the contributions that they made to those who had difficulty surviving those years within our incorporated city, and then her support of active duty servicemen was one that was very moving to Pat. And I wish that I could do this history of better service because I know that she's very passionate about it. But the men that worked for Mallard's grocery store were recognized on this grocery store honor roll list. And this honor roll hangs here in City Hall, and it has been requested for this exhibit. And so I wish Pat was here because I know that she would definitely be more moving in her history and recollection of this. So that's the best that I could do, Councilman
Okay.
Plummer.
great. I mean, it just gives some background, and I'm sure it's appreciated.
Okay.
Well,
Any
the one
other?
thing
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
So Mal, as many of you know, that is where our longtime city council member Ron Stern worked at one point in his life, and Mallard's grocery store was downtown in the Sonora Inn at the stop. Well, it wasn't a stoplight then, but it was at the corner of Stockton and Washington, and there was quite a few people that came through there. My father's meat market was actually across the street from them. I think it was through Ronnie's effort that the honor roll got to City Hall. And there's actually quite a list there of people who served during the war that were affiliated with Mallard's Grocery. And even a couple that I remember when I was a kid. So.
Cool. Okay, then I will ask for any public comment, starting with members of the public that are in council chambers and then to Zoom. Is there any public comment on this? Just kind of curious, can I see it? And please don't do it on Zoom because it'll make it too rough. Show of hands, how many had a family member in World War II? I mean, it's like most of the room, yeah. So, okay, just out of curiosity. So, okay, so I don't see any public comment. I'll bring that back to the council for a motion, a second, or any other further discussion.
I'd like to move on staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Garaventa, second by Councilmember Such. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Hawkins,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Segerstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Such.
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-0. Now, on to item number 8, discussion of the dissolution of the Social Equity Committee and pending decision, consideration of the committee's draft resolution, and consideration of a mayoral appointment to the committee with council ratification. Before I ask for public comment, council comment, anything else like that, before I get our city administrator to talk about it, I would just ask that this be respectful. There's definite feelings one way or another and many in the middle. So I just ask for respectful speaking. Please, let's just be respectful. Let's get through this and let's let our voices be heard. So, yes, and there will be, just so everyone knows, there will be a 3-minute time limit. So, Melissa.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I am new to this topic, so I will do my best to summarize the history that has been provided to you. But the Social Equity Committee has been meeting twice per month since September 2020. Meetings are held on the second and fourth Monday of each month. Since the Social Equity Committee's formation, they have created a mission and value statement, a purpose statement, and an update to the city values statement. Their recent work has been focused on a resolution to be proposed to the Sonora City Council. At this time, the resolution attached is currently an unfinished draft. As the committee approaches the completion of the resolution, the continuation of the Social Equity Committee is to be determined by the council this evening. The remaining goals of the Social Equity Committee are the completion of the current draft resolution, the review and possible update of city policies on racial sensitivity, and the review and possible racial sensitivity training for both staff and city council. With this history, staff recommends discussion of the dissolution of the Social Equity Committee, and pending your decision, consideration of the committee's draft resolution and consideration of a mayoral appointment to the committee with council ratification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, just one clarification before we
Yes.
go through. I just want to make sure, because we have lots of members of the public. So this is an ad hoc committee of the city council. Um, um, That committee can only make recommendations to the city council, including changes to city policy. Any recommendation that they make would have to be approved by the city council to have any force and effect. So I just want to make sure that that differentiation is clear.
And the makeup of the committee was 2 council members. Right now, one of those is empty. But there's 2 council members and then 5 members of the public. Each member of the council, myself, Mr. Plummer, and Councilmember Sudge, Segerstrom, and Garaventa, all got to appoint 1 member to that group. So just throwing that out there. So, okay, so I guess before we get started, I'll ask for council member comment, questions, and then we'll move that direction, and hopefully everything can be respectful. So, Councilmember Such, would you like to start out since you're on this committee?
I will be happy to. Hold on, let me get my microphone here. I will say that I'm often perplexed by the opposition to the work of social equity and to the word equity itself. And I say that not with judgment or disdain, but I simply do not understand why this work generates such angst. We are not calling anyone racist. We never have. We are not intending to shame social justice. I don't know how anyone could be opposed to such a worthy goal, racial justice, but I know it hasn't always been easy. I respectfully ask for more time to complete this project. We made a decision as a council to create the Social Equity Committee in July of 2020, as our city administrator just stated. We chose 2 council members to serve on the committee, and each council member appointed a community member of his as his or her representative. The group started meeting in late September 2020. We started the real work by writing our purpose statement as a way to come together as a group and bring focus to our work. We wrote a mission and vision statement as a declaration of the work at hand. We updated the city's value statement working with tribal elders. These documents were all brought before this council and approved, and I believe always by a 4-to-1 vote. And please correct me if I'm incorrect there. There were many missteps along the way, and though we knew of impatience, a timeline was never imposed. Now it's quite a task to write a resolution with 6 or 7 people with varying life experiences, different levels of commitment to the task, and lastly, a different willingness to engage in these difficult conversations. This is not work for the weak-spined. These 6 people currently in this committee have shown extraordinary ability to become nimble, have learned to listen first, to do the self-evaluation that must be part of all social exploration and true healing of any kind. I am changed by these conversations. They have made me neither more liberal nor less, much to some people's disdain, but they have made me a better listener and a more nuanced thinker. I cannot speak for others, but I'd bet the same is true for them. The draft resolution before you tonight is very rough. And just a little background about how this work progressed. Each committee member was charged with searching for and submitting resolutions about racial equity from other cities. Included were thoughts from community members that resonated and the writings of committee members themselves. There was broad discussion about all of this different material. Everyone was encouraged to do their own research and bring writings to the table. There were different levels of commitment and dedication, but everyone was engaged. Everyone took ownership and showed interest. We gathered all this information, grouping the phrases that brought similar ideas, and created a table to provide a visual of what we'd been talking about for so many months. It would have been helpful if I had thought of this earlier, but it wasn't my thought at all, but a suggestion from another committee member. I created the table as soon as it was suggested, and I want to thank Mercedes Toon for that suggestion. The categories of shared language were introduction, just about how the city of Sonora wishes to be known, welcoming the kind of community we all want to foster, original inhabitants of this land, healing the wounds, behavior that cannot have a place in this community, and then our therefore statements, which are sort of action items. We then worked from this table and grouped common language, combining words from different whereas statements, some taking much longer than others. Some, like white supremacy culture, are our most difficult and most contested topic, not talked about if if the full committee was not present. And that kind of policy was created out of respect for committee members, because we didn't think it was fair to make a decision one way or the other if everyone's voice wasn't part of the conversation. With all of this, our meetings are twice a month. Most often for 1 hour. That hour involves public comment before we start our work, 3 minutes per person. If just 6 people speak, that's 20 minutes from our 60 minutes. Then appropriately, there's public comment at the end of the hour. If just 6 people speak, there's another 20 minutes. I cannot, and I'd like to say I will not limit public comment. This is a committee of 6 or 7, but it has to include all the community, whether we agree with their stance or not. I've been very liberal with this time for public commenting, allowing people to speak who sign on late, et cetera, because I know the value and the magic of public comment. There is a continuum to this work, and I believe we've made great strides, and we've come to model the early realization that this work must include the practice of how to have different conversations. And I proudly say that we've modeled that. The resolution before you was never intended to be presented in this forum. To make any decision of this committee from this draft feels unfair and feels frankly disrespectful to all of us. We've worked hard, we've stretched, we've shown up again and again and again, and at times at great personal sacrifice. But we are building language and a culture that does not call names and does not shame. Just one more thing I just would like to add, because I know I've taken more than my share of time here, but our city administrator recently attended a League of Cities conference and said the conversation was largely about this topic. This is not fringe thought. And the report was that these conversations are hard and this work is surprisingly slow. I'll yield to the rest of the council.
Thank you, Councilmember Such. Okay, so Mr. Plummer, did you want to go next or Mr.
I will
Garaventa?
defer to Ann, should she want to, or?
She usually gets my attention, so that's why.
No, I'm happy to speak whenever, in whatever order.
Okay, well, I don't mind going now. So I don't think any of us question the noble intentions of the people on the committee and the people who support it. But I think everyone, if they are honest with themselves and each other, has to realize that this has become a completely partisan effort and that almost all of it falls in a partisan divide. I don't think that's good for a city when we should be concentrating on just running our public safety and services, filling potholes and paying the bills. This has been a distraction for a year and a half that has caused a lot of unneeded animosity, both among us and the public. I think it has made us look a lot weaker and a lot less cohesive than we certainly could be. And I think there is no personal animosity on the part of any of our council members, but this has been a poor distraction that is hurting the city. If Jim doesn't mind me reading 2 lines from the last paragraph of his resignation letter, I think it's very apropos. Do you mind, Jim?
I don't think he heard you.
No, I heard him.
Okay.
I don't even have in front of me. I don't even know what the last 2 lines are.
It was just that therefore I cannot continue.
The public document at this point, Doug?
Yeah, it is.
Well, he can read what he wants to read.
Okay. Well, therefore I cannot continue to pretend that the committee and my participation in it is the best way to achieve the goals of social equity. I believe there are other ways and venues that are much more effective. I think that is the road that we should pursue, since this is such a partisan issue. As I had stated before, probably the best place for it would be the Democrat Central Committee or someplace like that. But we need to quit keeping it as a distraction for the city. So with that, I will relinquish the floor and let Ann or Jim speak.
Well, I support the committee, and I completely disagree that it is a partisan issue. I wish Mr. Constitution was here, but in his absence, I printed out the preamble to the Constitution, and we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And we swore in this room to uphold that. We swore. We also have the Declaration of Independence, where we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think, I also printed out a definition of social equity is impartiality, fairness, and justice for all people in social policy. I mean, I don't see how this is hurting anybody, that they have discussions. I mean, our community maybe is divided, but I don't think social equity is what's dividing it, or at least the discussion of social equity. Right? We all have different political views, which seem to be skewing in more highly diverse directions. But what is wrong with talking about, and if it's 6, 7 people, are they disrupting you? Have they caused your family to fall apart? I mean, I think that they have every right to discuss their, fairness and justice and impartiality for all people. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Segstrom. Councilmember Garaventa, did you want to say anything before I ask for any public comment?
No, I just soon wait for after public comment.
Okay. Okay, anyone else want to say anything before I turn it over to public comment? Because it's probably going to be a while. Okay.
Can't hear Mark.
Yeah,
Sorry about
I'll tell
that,
you
Jim.
what, so what, I'm gonna ask for public comment. Right about 6:30, we'll do like a 5-minute break in case anybody has to go to the bathroom or anything. I'm not gonna tell any jokes, I swear. I don't want anybody to get upset with me. Okay, so about 6:30 or so, we'll take a break unless council member tells me differently. So, as I stated before, it's the 3 minutes. I'll be calling on everyone in this room first, and then we will go to the Zoom meeting, or the Zoom part of the meeting. So, just let everyone know in the room, there are 44 participants on Zoom. So this may go a while. So, um, let's call on public comment on this matter. Feel free to come up to the microphone. You can make a line if you would like. And like I said before, let's just please try to keep this respectful. It makes it much easier to convey our First Amendment right.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Paolo Maffei, and I was involved with a group. I was asked by the late Peggy Kingman, a wonderful woman, to participate in a group with similar objectives. And we worked quite hard at it, but I got the feeling at some point that we had done as much as we could at that time. This is a long time ago. We talked with the chief of police, who had himself been subject with his Asian girlfriend to abuse on Washington Street. So he was sensitized to this kind of issue. The sheriff at the time also convinced us that he was training the police force or the sheriff's department, the deputies, appropriately. And I spent some time with deputies, and my personal experience with the couple of deputies that I spent the night with on the beat were decent men who would not engage in the kind of thing that we read of and hear of in the news on the television. And so that group, felt we were kind of preaching to the choir. The meetings, we were all on the same page, and perhaps I was guilty of not seeing a broader perspective at the time, but the members kind of merged into the Martin Luther King group, which has been doing a very good job, of course. So an area that we didn't address is homelessness, and I know you're dealing with that, and I don't know to what degree your group, the group you'd sponsored, was getting involved with that. And in that regard, I had a colleague on the Board of Supervisors for 8 years, Larry Lotelli, also passed away, who I knew to be a person with a very good heart. And, you know, the homeless people who were evicted recently were on his property, and he actually was very generous in that regard. And I see that he moved just across the street. What do you do with these people? I've participated in the cleanup. I've seen the mess. I know that the judgments one can easily reach are hard to overlook. In my own experience, we saw that some of these homeless people had actually tried to put their garbage in bags in a specific area. It actually made it harder for us to remove them, but there was some effort on their part. I also was 8 years on the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee of the county, and so I saw mental health close up and how that affects people. And so I don't know what the solutions are.
Mr. Maffei, your time is up.
My time is up. So
yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for the public's knowledge, Mr. Maffei was on the Board of Supervisors for 2 terms?
2 terms.
2 terms, yes. Thank you for your service.
And as a reminder to everyone, in case you're trying to keep track so that everybody knows how much time they have, the clock's right up there, and you can see a countdown.
And then if we could get a 30-second warning. I know, yeah, I do it all the time too, so.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I copied from the internet the city council's original, says City of Sonora Social Equity Committee, City Council approved committee outcomes. And due to lack of time, I'm only going to read something that I wrote about the mission statement that was the outcome that the city, your council approved, not the mission statement adopted or that's, I guess, in process with the actual social equity committee, but I think it's apropos. Here is the mission statement. To strengthen the city's understanding and capacity to recognize biases and eliminate racial disparities, heal racial divisions, and build a more equitable town. My comments. The mission statement is a major assumption that something is amiss and that the city and presumptively the surrounding communities are guilty of racial bias, intolerant of sexual identity, and inherently unfair for some inexplicable reason. No evidence exists to support these assumptions, and there is a multitude of federal, state, and local laws already on the books that prevent discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, race, religion, or national origin. There is not need or reason for the city to adopt a document that essentially accuses its citizens of racial bias, intolerant to minorities, and needing to be sent to social equity training to gain forgiveness. The Social Equity Committee's existence is essentially a misuse of public resources. Those who claim that opposition to the Social Equity Committee is due to ignorance, fear, and refusal to change, racism, and white supremacy culture need to prove those accusations with hard evidence rather than emotional virtue signaling. What we need is a return to good old American values of hard work, respect for others, and the rule of law that our founding fathers provided for us over 240 years ago. Alveda King said this morning, we are all good children of one race, the human race, with ethnic differences. God bless this greatest country that
30
has ever been
seconds.
created on the face of the earth. Nowhere has more freedom, more opportunity, and more prosperity been possible for all people than the United States of America. Equal opportunity, not social equity, is the answer. And in the spirit of in the spirit of equal opportunity, I propose the City of Sonora consider creating an American Values Committee with a vision to adopt a policy that perpetuates the great advances made in social, racial,
Time's up,
and
Dave.
economic opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add, that, Dave, you were accessory recorder for 2 terms, 3 terms?
28 years, 7 terms.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for your service. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Richard Todd, licensed land surveyor, professional businessman, live in the city of Sonora. I'm here tonight on behalf of Dr. Martin Luther King, who has not been declared in violation of the Constitution, by the way. He would roll over in his grave if he knew what the Social Equity Committee was doing. The purpose statement and the mission statement are the opposite of Dr. King's vision and make racial matters worse than better. His idea was to redirect public thought away from skin color. Nowhere in these statements is there a reference to judging a man by the content of his character. It's all about skin color, isn't it? In my opinion, this committee has been, perhaps with good intentions, inadvertently peddling Marxist ideology and needs to be redirected to activity that actually benefits the community's prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, just because we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome, irrespective of their opinion, if we could not have clapping or booing or anything else like that. You guys have all been great, but we want to make sure everybody feels welcome to step up and have their opportunity to speak.
Cool. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Marquardt. I've been in Sonora for 31 years, moved from God's country, Stockton, San Joaquin County. I heard about the social equities thing, and I just thought I'd make a comment. I spent 30 years as a correctional officer and retired from Sierra Conservation Center. We used to have programs or training every year called IST, in-service training. And they would teach us what they called about protective groups, old guys, young guys, gay guys, transgender, et cetera, and how, at any rate, from the foot soldier, let me just say, everything came out of Sacramento, and mostly people would sit and say, well, we're just doing what Sacramento says. We have no choice. So, but for the officer, for the fireman, for the city worker that goes through these classes, I'll just tell you how it really is. They look at people that create these groups and they'll go, what the hell are they doing? Because it created more division. It created more question. It created an embarrassment to anyone who really had anything to say about it. And I'll digress just for a second. I spent 9 years in the Air Force, spent some time in Japan, probably the most racist place in the world, and I use this a lot, based on color, because everybody was Japanese. We'd come in, whether I was with a Hispanic guy in uniform or we were all airmen, but a Mexican, a black, or whatever it was, they would look at us as Americans. They'd say, the Americans. Only when I came back to America were we divided. Everybody looked at us as a Mexican guy, a black guy, or whatever. We never could figure that out. And I just thought I'd throw that out there for whatever it's worth, because I think everything is probably meant well, but I don't think it goes well at the bottom level. And with that, I'll introduce my daughter. She's a correctional officer, 22 and a half years or better. She took after Dad, but she's smarter than me, but a little more aggressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jody Sharkey. I also work at the Department of Corrections. I would say, my question is this taxpayer money being spent on these 6 people getting in a room and talking about this? I believe that this is a waste of my taxpayer dollars. I would not want my children to be learning about this. I don't want to learn about this. I just had a class about this. It was the worst class I've ever had in my entire life. I walked out of it. I had to feel guilty because my parents are still married, and then I had to feel bad because my children are now from a divorced family, because I'm a loser that got divorced. So it's a slippery slope, and it creates more division than it does create unity. I would suggest not doing it to do this class or whatever that you're planning on doing with this taxpayer dollars. It's creating division. It's not creating unity at all. And I'm worried for my children. I'm worried I mean, we already have divide with masks. We have divide with, now you have divide with race. You have to feel guilty about who you are and how you were raised. It's not like I can go in a time machine and ask my father not to create me. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I didn't get a choice into what color I was born. That's just the color that I am. So I think, I mean, we are sitting there, it says, in God we trust. It's the like #2 rule, treat people as you would like to be treated. The Constitution, it pretty much says it. You just spoke about it. You said all people are created equal with certain inalienable rights. That we don't need another group to say that we're all created equal. We already have it. We don't need any more division to clarify our differences. We are different for a reason. Our differences make us great. That's what makes us wonderful. That's what makes us America. So I don't think that this town in particular needs any of that. I don't think any town needs that. But we're predominantly Caucasian in this town. So are we going to tell all of our children to feel guilty about who they are and what they are? That's unacceptable. I'm ready to pull my kids out of school and move to out of state. I mean, it's ridiculous that this is what we've come to. I mean, I'm extremely disappointed, but I hope that our taxpayer dollars aren't going towards this. And if they are, I would be more willing to do pothole talk. Let's talk about those potholes, because I'm hitting them all the time. You know, make my commute smoother. So thank you.
Thank you.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that one of the key motivations for establishing the Social Equity Committee was concerns about the Sonora Police Department in the wake of George Floyd's death. Clearly, no one believes that there was any justification for what happened to George Floyd. During the last Social Equity Committee meeting, there were comments to the effect that the Sonora Police Department is no longer a concern. Kudos to Chief Vanderwill and his department for staying the course. I would just like to point out that this change of perspective happened without a social equity resolution. In a significant way, doesn't this render the Social Equity Committee moot?
Thank you.
Good evening. Randy Henvelt, citizen of Tuolumne County, and first of all, I'm appalled that we're even having this conversation. I agree a lot with what Councilman Plummer said. I think this is divisive. You spent 18 months, and this is where you've got a waste of time. I thought I was, sorry. Any rate, social equity. I am guilty of being born an American. I'm blessed to be an American. I'm blessed to be in this country. This country is the only country in the world that even considers equity an important issue. Oh, you can say that Western Europe is good, but let me tell you, they know what discrimination is in the worst way. I've had the privilege of working almost all over the world. And Western Europe and Asia and Latin America, they all have their biases and they are ingrained. And I mean, you weren't born well enough. You're a Flemish Belgian instead of a French Belgian. And the discrimination is there. It's been there. India, look at them. It's all there. We're the only people in the world that value people. And Martin Luther King Jr. was right. It's the character of people. It's the passion in their heart and their ability to take things and their willingness to go forth. Start valuing people what they are, and let's not give people an excuse to discriminate against each other or to be divisive. And that's what the committee is. They're divisive. I even watched them stomp all over some people who had a divisive opinion. Oh, they didn't do it openly and vigorously most of the time, but they did. I watched it several times, and I just found it a waste of time. Okay, this is divisive. I recommend you not do this. And by the way, the arrogance that everybody, the county and other communities ought to adopt the same resolution. Give me a break. Give me a break. Sonora and our people aren't the know-it-alls of the world. We are a great community, and as long as we respect other people and we have a policy of respecting other people and not making it an issue of being divisive like this is, we'll be successful and we'll honor people for their value, their passion, and their commitment to life in their community. That's what we need to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Handvelt. Just to put out there, Supervisor or former Supervisor Handvelt was on for 2 terms. 2 terms. We thank you for your service. Okay, next.
Hi, I am Charlene Anderson. I am just became the president of the Women's Republican Committee here in our county. I've also lived here my whole life, and I just wanted to say that when I heard of this committee and the names we were being called or accused of being, I thought, I've lived here my whole life. Where the hell is this happening? I've never seen it, and it breaks my heart because I know so many people in our community in this county that have been scared from COVID, have been scared and locked in their homes. And now it's time to love and get back together and to take care of each other. It's not a time to break people up and call names. It's not right. And like in God we trust in God. We are brothers and sisters in him, and we take care of each other just like he tells us to. And this is this most sheltered county I've ever been in, between here and Angels Camp also. People love each other. People take care of each other. Family businesses for 5 generations. I mean, they go back forever, and they're the most wonderful people. They're farmers. They're people that work here, live here, and love here. And our schools, everything. They need healing, and they need to quit this stuff, this name calling, and these things that are not real.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Benjamin Anderson, and I do live in Tuolumne County. I live in Sonora. And I don't know what happened to the 10 Commandments, but that's what we need to get back to. If we just follow the 10 Commandments, followed God's laws, we would have none of this. I don't understand what the problem is. Why do we need more laws? We don't. This is ridiculous. We're doing fine. I don't see a problem here. There is really no problem. Why cause a problem where there is none? We're doing fine. You know, everything is fine. I've traveled the country. I've traveled the world, and I've never seen more decisiveness than in America. And I don't get it. We're coming together. We're doing fine. We're doing much better than we were 3 years ago. It's coming back together. We're doing better, and we're getting better all the time. So I just don't see a reason why, especially in a small town. This small town's doing great. I came from the Bay Area. Even the Bay Area, where there's a big melting pot, we got along. Everybody gets along. I don't see a problem. I don't understand why we're causing a problem where there is no problem. It's like we're stirring up a pot and trying to cause an issue where there is none. So I just don't get it. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's, after this gentleman, if there's anyone else in here, please come up, because then after this, I'll be calling on the Zoom comments. Go
Hello,
ahead, sir.
my name is Ed Greer. I moved here in the 80s. Social equity is racism dressed up as anti-racism. It's a fraud that violates the Bill of Rights, private property, and the Constitution. The social equity woke movement defines people who were born with white skin as white supremacists. This violates the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that outlaws discrimination on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. Social equity arbitrarily violates these prohibitions in an attempt to return to the racism of the 50s and 60s in reverse, all as a pretense to appear caring and altruistic. We've had a good look at the division and destruction that social equity has already unleashed on cities all across the United States. During these last couple of years, thousands of small businesses, homes, and institutions have already been violently robbed, burned, and destroyed by this woke movement. Thousands of individuals and police have been injured and killed with impunity just in the last 3 years. Even police stations were allowed to be burned to the ground. Most of these news agencies have censored and suppressed by propaganda these incidents and condone this despicable behavior, which is just another version of jealousy and envy. Portland, Seattle, Oakland, and Atlanta, and so many other cities across America have been assaulted and brought to their knees by this Marxist lawlessness. They have influenced governors, mayors, and attorney generals across the country to release violent prisoners out onto the streets, including rapists and murderers, demanding that communities and cities defund the police. Now they want to bring this racism and lawlessness to Sonora and Tuolumne County. Our country and community is at a historical and threatened time in its history.
30 seconds.
Would be wise to listen to Jesus' words when he said, "Be careful that you be not deceived." We, the people, are being faced with domestic enemies that our founding fathers warned us about in the Declaration of Independence. This equity movement is a deceitful pretense sprinkled with false promises that are no different than using lipstick on a pig or wolves masquerading in sheep's clothing. It's a no-brainer to me. This racist equity movement committee
Time's up, sir.
needs to be demanded and members retired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Mel Fisher, and I'm going to tell you about social equity, and the other name for it is ideological subversion. And I'm going to tell you where that came from. Write this name down, Yuri Bezmenov, Yuri Bezmenov, because you want to look him up on YouTube. He was born in 1939, the son of a Red Army officer. He was privileged. He went to all the privileged schools in Moscow and was recruited because of his good grades by the KGB. He was trained by the KGB and sent to India, where he was to practice ideological subversion. What is ideological subversion? 4 stages: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and finally normalization. This is how a communist country takes down the country of their enemy. And if you participate in this social equity, you are participating in ideological subversion. It is dangerously divisive, dangerously divisive. And I encourage you to watch Yuri Bezmenov on YouTube and hear him tell his story. What he realized when he was in India. He was schmoozing with all the Indian government officials, the higher ups, actors, everybody, and keeping names and numbers. And he realized when the city of Hue in Vietnam was taken over by the communists, and 2 days later, 15,000 people were murdered, how did they know how to get these people? Well, the subversives had gone into Hue, taken names and numbers, hand them over to the communists when they came in, and boom. And it was at that point that Yuri realized the names and numbers of the people who had opened their households to him in India were the names that could be handed over to the communists and they would be killed. And the same thing is probably going to happen in the next week in the city of Kiev. Rest assured, the communists don't
30
back
seconds.
off. Yuri Bezmenov, please watch him on YouTube and connect the dots. And if you can't connect the dots, watch it again. Maybe you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm just curious about the data that propagated this in the first place. Was there data, or are there problems? Are there perceived problems? Why was the Equity Committee organized in the first place? Is our move based on the fact that other cities have an equity resolution? So we think because their demographic has issues, then we could or we do. I know what racism and problematic situations look like being a tourist in St. Louis during the Ferguson riots. My relatives in Alton, Illinois said, "Why are you going to St. Louis?" We said, "We want to see the arch. We want to be part of what's going on there." Well, we didn't even know what was going on there in Ferguson, but the only issues that we experienced were black people roughing up my wife on the loading dock to the small train there. We had no idea what was even going on. There were issues there for sure. They might need an equity resolution, or they need some sort of resolution by the people to treat each other fairly. So I'd say maybe a better idea is you organize on your own a meeting over at the Fire Museum every month for people who have been marginalized or have experienced huge issues in this loving, awesome county. And then you can deal with that and you can point them to maybe our chief of police or someone who could work with them to resolve it in an orderly and just way according to our laws. And like they said, there already are laws. And so I think maybe you're going about it wrong, and there could be something along these lines, maybe like what I just suggested. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. And then I believe this, okay, whoever wants to come up first, it's great.
My name is Jeff Higgs, and I moved to the county in 1980. And my lovely wife Emily's here. We raised 5 kids here. And I just want to say that I think all of us can agree that what really matters in relationships is character and valuing people. Jesus said, greatest commandment, love God with all your heart. Second is love your neighbor as yourself. You know, doing to others as you have them doing to you. And when we, you know, our founders established this country on principles that really came from, a lot of them came from the Bible. In fact, there's a quote that one of the founders said that the Constitution was established for a moral and religious people, and it's wholly inadequate to govern any other type of people. And I believe part of the reason that we have these issues is because someone said, where's the 10 Commandments anymore? You know, we took the 10 Commandments out of school. We don't teach them publicly. We don't teach, you know, how to treat one another right. We don't teach these moral values that come from the Bible and came from God. And God gave us these inalienable rights, but they require responsibilities, right? We have to be responsible to do the right things for one another. So I just want to say, I believe Martin Luther King Jr., he was pursuing that the black people and those that were being mistreated would be treated based on character, not on their skin color. And that's what we need to focus on in our community, is to encourage the development of good character in our children and in one another, and treat one another with respect and love and care as we would want to be treated. And the focus on outward skin color and how, you know, the way you were born, whether white or black, I mean, those focusing on those outward things is not the solution. It's on the inward that really matters. So that's just what I wanted to encourage us to think about and focus on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha Kākou Council, thank you for your time. My name is Nikki Coleman. Before I begin, I just want to address, I've heard a lot tonight about love and welcoming from people in this community and the feeling of that. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that not all of us have been welcomed with that. I'd like to take a moment to emphasize to the council and that the resolution you're holding tonight is a draft. It is not complete, and there are still conversations to be had in order to present our final proposal to you. The idea that a vote on the committee's future is being based on an unfinished document is premature and unfair. I'd like to state for the record that this resolution is by no means intended to guilt or shame anyone for being white, period. No one, nor this resolution, has made that accusation at all. The resolution does not blame or accuse anyone of committing racially motivated crimes. It says we are intolerant to it. It does not accuse anyone of being racist. It says that we are intolerant to it. Why wouldn't we be? There is a huge difference. All of the committee members that you have selected have shown up and resiliently pressed on through the tasks that you've given to us, through difficulty that I'm sure none of us anticipated. I've been called every name under the sun. We've pushed on and done exactly what was asked of us, and yet it feels like we're being punished. Is this because of time? Under some council member standards, I've heard that we aren't working fast enough. Who has the power to determine what is fast enough for this work? Sonora is one of thousands of cities and towns across the United States that is devoting time and resources to this work. And each city is experiencing the same thing. In order for the work to be genuine and heartfelt, it takes time. In order for people from all different backgrounds, which is the case with the people for this committee that you chose, it takes time for all of us to communicate and to understand one another without making accusation. We have never been interested in writing a meaningless overnight resolution. This is bigger than this resolution. It's bigger than a piece of paper, It's clear tonight that there are so many people who do not know the root of the work that we're doing. And I would invite everyone to join us at our next meeting. We're having a conversation specifically about language and definition and the nuances behind language and
30
definition.
seconds.
I ask of you tonight to please let us work. Please stop looking at this as a two-sided partisan fight. It is not. Please join the conversation before you end ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki, I apologize. I didn't recognize you earlier. You cut your hair. Yeah, I did recognize you. So.
Likewise, I didn't intentionally ignore you, but between the mask and the new look.
Again. No doubt that you've had people say objectionable things to you. For what it's worth, time overseas, I've been stared at to the point where people have walked into walls and posts and stuff because they're wondering what the heck that thing is doing in their part of the world. Whatever. Most of the people were just fine. If you want to focus on every jackass out there, well, that's your choice. I chose not to do that. I've been subject to what you call skin tax because I'm a different color in other parts of the world. And I gotta break it to you, racism's all around the world. It's not just here. Mauritania, they're still enslaving people. China, still enslaving people. Sudan, I could go on. Like keep hearing about this country. This is one of the first places where it went away. Okay? In my world, we get over it. You asked about people, you know about people in World War II, like my dad. My sister worked for a guy in Japan. And we get talking about this and that. He grew up in Hiroshima. His age. Whoa, were you there? Yeah, he got blown out of a tree when he was a kid. We didn't have to have resolutions and apologies and gee golly, we made a connection as human beings. That's what equality is about. It's not equity. It's not getting even with each other. Okay? It's making a heart to heart, human to human. We are equal. That, if you want to make a change, that's how you do it. And sorry, but your resolution is it's all about splitting people. Okay? You may be well intentioned. There's a program I was also trained in during it was secret during the Cold War. Okay? It's not now. I've tried to drop hints about it and tell you the same thing in public comment. I'd love to have a private conversation. We can't. Okay? Understand? But it has to do with content of character, not color of skin, not every little click that you can think of. If I were trying to turn that upside down, well as intentioned as you are, I mean, I take the same kind of approach as you're taking. When George Washington was sick, they bled him. And he didn't get better, so they did it again. I don't know if that killed him, but it didn't help. They tried to save him. It was a mistake.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make an announcement. It's snowing pretty hard outside right now, so those that don't have chains or four-wheel drive, just want to make that announcement. The roads are really slippery and dangerous in downtown right now. So if you don't have an alternate means, you might want to think about calling in. So just let everybody know.
Thank you, Chief New. Right. Is there anyone else that's in here that doesn't need to leave, that hasn't spoke, that would like to speak? Because if not, I'm going to take about a 5-minute break. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for public comment on this? Let's give it just a minute, let them go so they could take off.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here, and yeah. I'll tell you what, let's take a 5-minute break now. I think that would be more efficient. Do you mind? Is that okay, sir? Okay, so we'll come back at about 6:33. It's possible. Thank you. It's possible that later on we may have another break, just depending on how long this will go. So yeah, it's now 6:36 and we're bringing the meeting back and we're finishing up public comment that is in the council chambers, and then we will continue. So anyone else in the that's a member of the public that would like to speak, feel free to come up or yeah. So go ahead. Next, sir.
Thank you, and thank all of you for your service. My name is Robert Sinclair, and I simply would like to add my voice to most of the other voices beyond here. You have a sign up there, "In God We Trust." The flag in the Pledge of Allegiance makes a similar reference. The council member spoke about the freedoms we enjoy in the Constitution. This is the greatest nation on earth, ever has been, because of those freedoms. And the God that we trust placed his words in the Constitution to help us be free and to know what freedom is. Having said that, people are people. And there are some good actors and there are some bad actors. And as a public, we can do better. No one is perfect. Having said all of that, the language of critical race theory seems to be divisive. And for my vote, for my voice, would be that this is beyond the scope of the legislation and the resolutions that are contemplated here. I agree with some of the other speakers. If we could all be just like God or Jesus, problem solved. That's not the life we live. That's not the deck of cards that we all have. And we should strive to do better. But the effort that's undertaken here seems to me to be beyond the scope of city council responsibility. So thank you for your service once again. And I agree, in God we trust. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that has not spoke? So let's see. And okay, so I will be going to the Zoom calls unless there's anyone else that is in here that would like to speak. So, okay. So let's move on to the Zoom. Now, I'm not sure who was first on here, and just a reminder, it is 3 minutes of speaking on this issue. So do we want to go with Barbara first? Okay. Barbara Dressler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Barbara.
All right, thank you. The Sonora City Council is discussing whether social equity in our community recommends continuing the Social Equity Committee to inform community values of justice as in the city charter. As an example of how values can stray from those charter values is the statement by a city council member at the State of Jefferson Candidate Forum when he described the Civil War as the war of Northern aggression. Catering to a pro-secession audience by denigrating the fight against slavery is exactly what social equity daylights, especially in an elected leader who maintains we're all happy here. Another city council member knows well that having a friend's driveway painted with the word nigger confirms we aren't all happy here. A third city council member has promoted the public involvement of a citizen who posted Proud Boys statements on his personal social media, an organization prosecuted for involvement in violence against non-whites in Charlottesville, the January 6th Capitol attack, and elsewhere. The council member explains away this citizen's affiliation as not serious. Within this last year, a high school teacher at our high school counseled immigrant students and the white students who were aggressively taunting them, asking why they were in the United States. Anyone who was at the George Floyd or Martin Luther King gatherings heard the aggressive slurs from passing motorists towards peaceful attendees. There is a strong need to counter those who demean or act out aggression against diversity in our community. Tourists come from every part of the planet to experience our gold rush history, and it is in our best interests, if not only for reasons of justice or morality, to treat everyone living in or visiting our community with courtesy. Our community requires the Social Equity Forum to provide awareness of where our community can improve. If advancing local justice and fairness bothers you, ask yourself why. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Would Eric Rivera, Eric Rivera be next?
Yes, thank you, City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here to speak on behalf of allowing the Social Equity Committee continue its very important work. And I'd like to do that by addressing 2 points I've heard various elected officials and members of the public make. Point number 1 has been that they don't see this issue, or this doesn't seem to exist in Sonora County. Let me dissolve that disillusion right now. I am somebody who has experienced racism and harassment in Sonora County. I married my wife, Joanna, who is a native hometown person, went to Sonora High School. We tried to go to a bar to enjoy an evening together, and we were immediately berated, isolated, harassed, and completely ignored by staff and belittled by other customers there for about 30, 45 minutes before we finally left because we could not get service there. Since that has happened, I've made a choice not to go to that bar, and I made conscious financial decisions about how we spend our money when we're there together and whether or not I'll even go to Sonora to see my 2 little nieces who I love dearly, because I don't want to have my wife be exposed to seeing me discriminating. I don't want to have to get involved in any confrontations around that discrimination. I've also heard it said among several people that this is not a city council issue, that they need to be focused on potholes and other related and other sort of transportation kind of issues like that. Let me just tell you, the success of any community, I don't care whether it's in the mountains or the shores or in the fields, depends on how it welcomes visitors and how it welcomes new people into its community, not just those who have lived there for extended periods of time. Let me say, I have not felt welcomed in Sonora when I have been there. I feel as if I'm on guard. And what that means is that I make financial decisions accordingly. And that is integral to the success of any community, as to whether they are welcoming those into the community who are going to make a home there and spend their resources there and their time there. And if this committee and this city council feels like it can't effectively walk and chew gum at the same time because it needs to focus on these other issues, that speaks volumes to me as a person who has family now living in Sonora by virtue of marrying my wife, who has her sister living there and her brother-in-law, people that I love. But I do not feel loved in that community when I go in there. I've made that known. So I would say, if this is a challenge for this city council, again, I would echo the comments of the previous speaker. Ask yourselves, why is that a challenge for this community to do so? Why is this community so apprehensive to grapple with these issues of division? Issues of division, which, contrary to other speakers, have long existed in your community, because it's just like every community around this nation that's dealing with issues around equity and fair treatment of persons who look like me as a person of color, people who maybe have different sexual orientations, different presentations of gender. And that's now integral to every community throughout. Can we work together, work as a nation to realize the dreams that our founding fathers have set forward, dreams of equity, equality, and fairness? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe next is Joanna Gallagher.
Good evening. I grew up in Sonora, went to the Waldorf School and to Sonora High School, and I always felt safe. I always felt welcomed. And so it shocked and dismayed me when I brought my husband to visit my amazing hometown, and immediately felt totally differently. When we think about cancer, so if you have cancer in your brain, but your leg is fine, or your stomach is fine, or your heart is fine, you still have cancer. So even if you haven't personally experienced discrimination, even if you haven't personally witnessed it, doesn't mean it's not there, and it doesn't mean it doesn't affect the entire community because it is there. Dr. King has been quoted quite a lot this evening, and I would like to add another piece of wisdom from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, because we're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. So I say this all to express my passionate support for the work of the Social Equity Committee, and to express my gratitude to the persistence of the Social Equity Committee members against incredible opposition and undermining. So let those who say it can't be done not get in the way of those who are trying to do it.
Thank you. Okay, next, I believe that's Andy Merrill.
Thank you, everyone, for letting me have the moment to speak here tonight. Firstly, I just am quite shocked by both sides of people on this argument. I've previously been made aware of certain comments made by certain, I believe, council members to the effect of social equity to them means that white men lose. Well, I sit here before you today as a straight cisgendered white male. I attended Sonora Elementary from 2nd grade through 8th grade, and I attended Sonora High, a graduate of Sonora High. And currently I've been a resident in the city of Sonora since I moved back here in 2012. And I just want to let everyone know that I've been on both sides of the social equity divide. I've both been someone that has used abusive language myself in the past. Luckily, I was able to educate myself on how my language hurt other people. I grew from it. I speak out against those that use that kind of language. And I think this whole, at least all the discussion that I've heard so far, clearly demonstrates to me a failure on the private citizens' part to properly educate themselves on what social equity actually means. And I think it demonstrates a failure on the part of the Committee on Social Equity to properly educate its citizens on the scope of what it's trying to accomplish. And again, what social equity means. It's not just about race. It's also about gender issues. It's about poverty. It's basically about your socioeconomic status. So to limit this strictly to a racial conversation is entirely inaccurate and not in line with the overall goals of social equity. So I just think it's appalling. Every single one of or not every single one, but the overwhelming majority of these people that have spoken tonight have been of an older generation. And I think their views might be completely outdated. And I'm speaking as someone who currently walks the streets of Sonora. I've been a victim of abuse when I was in high school, just because I was involved in the
30
arts.
seconds.
I played in bands. I did a lot of stage acting. And since moving back, some of the same people that subjected me to abuse then have since come to my shows. And just because, I dress in a way that they perceive to be homosexual, I get harassed for that. So I just want to remind everyone, this is not just about race. And I implore the committee to do more to define the scope of what they're trying to accomplish.
Thank you. I believe next is Steve Opie. And just for everyone's record, everyone is only speaking one time for 3 minutes. So, because sometimes we have some hand raising after the fact, but everyone is speaking one time for 3 minutes. So, okay, go ahead, Steve.
Hello. Sorry for my hairdo. It's been a long day. Hard at work. So far, I've heard a handful of people talk positively about the Social Equity Committee and what it's doing for positive works. And I actually wrote something down out of what I heard. Let me grab it real quick here. Basically, the problem I have with it is the term white supremacy culture. I don't think anybody has a problem with, understanding that we all need to be fair treated and all that. But the Social Equity Committee's trying to create I'm going to call it a protected class, basically because they're using words like white supremacy culture. If you think that Sonora is full of white supremacy culture, it's new to me. And I never knew about this until Social Equity Committee came up. And a few of the members of it have actually talked to me about this, about how basically the one thing that's holding them up from making a resolution is the word white supremacy culture. Now, I agree that supremacy culture is a problem because you can have a problem with any kind of supremacy. In the Middle East, they have, Muslim supremacy, and that's what actually pushed the native religion there out of Arabia. However long ago, I don't know. But Saudi Arabia used to have a real big religion. I think it was Zuran or something. I can't remember the exact word, but I actually know a guy who came from that religion, and I never knew about it until recently. So any kind of culture can have supremacy. I'm going to read to you what I wrote down here. I have heard 2 members of the Social Equity Committee talk about how much work they need to do when the only conflict they have had was the words white supremacy culture. Such a problem, meaning white supremacy culture, is such a problem that when Mary Rose Rutaconga brought up the issue that employees had brought to her with having a resolution that included white supremacy culture, Colette Sutt did not allow Mary Rose to speak. 3 members thought Mary Rose brought up a good point and was trying to explain issues employees have had. If social equity is making sure the world knows Sonora has a problem with white supremacy culture to the point we include it in our resolutions and shut down opposition, I would say we have a problem
30
with
seconds.
with envy. The social equity is soft Marxism and penalizes people for their politics, religion, and color of their skin, meaning that people who do not agree with the people in charge are the people that basically go to the camps. So, in a nutshell, that's basically my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the next one is Dennis.
Yes, you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, I'm on a
Yes,
cell
we can
phone.
hear
I've
you.
got an ancient computer. Okay, I've got an ancient computer, so bear with me. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Yeah, as a several generation farmer, I have an analogy to present here, and keeping it simple. There are seeds in the world, many kinds, right? Good seeds that bear beautiful flowers, plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, etc. Then there are also the bad seeds in the world that bear weeds of all kinds, right? The weeds eventually overrun the results of the good seeds by choking them out unless they are pulled out and eliminated before they get out of hand. My point with this analogy is to dissolve this white supremacy culture, social equity resolution, social equity committee, CRT, or whatever other names are given to these bad seeds before they grow, overrun, and choke out our town and community. Pull the weeds out now and get rid of them so the good seeds can flourish. One last point. There's a great movie that the older generation probably remembers and the younger generation may want to watch called Dr. Zhivago. Within the movie, the political ideology, Marxism, divided people upon class. That ideology imposed by Lenin and later Stalin were responsible for over 60 million deaths. With these bad seeds and the Marxist ideology that some here are attempting to propose are trying to divide people upon race. Get rid of the bad seeds now before they become weeds with deep roots and then are hard to remove. Thank you for your time and opportunity to give you guys my opinion.
Thank you. Next is Jesse. Go ahead, Jesse. Still looks like it's.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Jesse.
Yay, thank you. Hi, I was born and raised here. I went to elementary school and high school and college here. I'm a property owner in the city of Sonora, and I support the Social Equity Committee. I would like to see them continue. I hear a lot of people saying that they don't see a reason for it. And I think that's exactly why they need to be here. I am against division in this community and would like us to come together when people are harmed and excluded based on gender, sexuality, economics, as the homeless are. That is dividing people. And I think the purpose of the Social Equity Committee would be to see how we are being divided so we can find out how to reconcile these divisions. And I hear there's a lot of Christians out there in the audience, and I appreciate you. I think Jesus would also support the Social Equity Committee. And instead of saying all lives matter, Jesus said Samaritan lives matter. Instead of saying all lives matter, Jesus said children's lives matter. Instead of saying all lives matter, Jesus said Gentile lives matter. Instead of saying all lives matter, Jesus said Jewish lives matter. Instead of saying all lives matter, Jesus said women's lives matter. And instead of saying all lives matter, Jesus said lepers' lives matter. A social equity committee would be saying that all those lives matter. Your lives matter. And we should all work together to come together and erase these divisions. I agree with you all. I just think that you're maybe missing that bit of information. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Callahan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, hi there. My name is Mike Callahan. I'm a business owner and a resident of Sonora. I'd like to ask a couple of questions of the city council. I know that you can't answer my questions right now, but I wanted to throw them out there anyway. The first question I have is, what is the role of the Social Equity Committee? Is the role to advise the city on the decisions they're going to be making as far as planning and moving forward with growth and the future of the city? Will the city be seeking advisement from the Social Equity Committee? And also specifically to the city attorney, do you feel confident that you will be able to defend the city in the event that the city takes recommendations from the Social Equity Committee in their decision-making process and decides that an equitable decision is more important than a logical, practical decision that is best for the city? And for the city council, do you feel confident that the Social Equity Committee will be helpful to the city moving forward and be a positive attribute? Or does it feel that the Social Equity Committee will be a liability, causing extra turmoil and problems in the city, potentially putting the city on the defense for the decisions that they make while trying to appease a committee? Essentially, it is not an elected committee, but a group of people that are making what could be very big decisions for the city if the city does decide to listen to what they have to say. I think that the citizens of Sonora deserve to understand what this equity committee really stands for and what potential power they might have when it comes to the city making decisions. This committee is not following any laws or codes. They are just following their own whims and what they deem to be equitable, which is not a practical term when it comes to our government. So I feel that this committee overreaches the role of our city government and strongly encourage the city council to dissolve this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elizabeth Wilkie.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hey, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. I'm all for the Social Equity Committee. I believe it does a really great job, and it's a really thankless job. They have worked so hard to bring the idea of equity to all in Sonora City and Tuolumne County. And they get oftentimes the wrong end of the stick. I believe it is the city council's job to do much more than just put paving over potholes and paying taxes. If not for you, who will do it? I know that Mayor Pro Tem said something about maybe meeting a couple of days and seeing if they can get together, or it should be the Democratic club taking over. Well, it's not a partisan issue, it's a human issue. And all humans should be treated exactly the same. And unfortunately, they're not. It is evident the way that the unhoused in our community is treated, the mentally ill, the other, the people of color. I have seen it. I have been fortunate not to have experienced it, but I do know it exists because I have many friends who have experienced discrimination and name calling and situations that are very difficult. The Social Equity Committee should and must continue. I fully support it, and I am frankly shocked that not everybody does. I'm wondering why, just as one of the speakers in the beginning, why do people not all accept the idea that everyone should be treated well? Why do we not think that it's important enough for our city to be welcoming of all in our town and our county? And so I fully support the Social Equity Committee, and I fully support you continuing it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll do Peter next.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Members of the council, in the aftermath of the George Floyd tragedy, people understandably were outraged, and the idea of a proclamation or a resolution denouncing his horrible death was a very good idea. And I think at the time you would have polled people and found close to 100% support. So I'm not sure why you even needed a committee to create this resolution, but here we are some 18 months later without one to vote on, despite the fact that neighboring communities finished their resolution in a matter of weeks after the George Floyd tragedy. Now, a lot of time and effort has been expended trying to create the resolution, and with people of goodwill on both sides articulating why something should or should not be included. Over time, though, the resolution has swollen and mushroomed to include a litany of alleged social grievances and has strayed far outside of its original mission. Unfortunately, the twice monthly meetings have dragged on for far too long and seem to have been co-opted by a vocal handful of people bent on criticizing Sonora, its police department, the early settlers, its current residents, and the white race, all under the umbrella of a George Floyd resolution. It's all become very political and very polarizing, unfortunately, and really, more appropriately, belongs in a political campaign. It is alienating folks, needlessly fomenting hyper acrimonious division and sullying the reputation of our beautiful city of Sonora unnecessarily. So I say to you, the city council, please, let's dissolve this committee tonight and get back to running the city for the benefit of all its residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just saw the lights flicker. So just for everyone that's at home, if suddenly this ends, it's not a conspiracy of any sort to end it. It's because the power went out because it's snowing. So on next to Marley's Bell.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know that I support the work of the Social Equity Committee and ask the City Council to tell them to proceed and get the job done. I think that dissolving the committee now would have a significant negative impact for those living here, especially those who are marginalized. And by that, I'm talking about people of color, folks who identify as LGBTQ, people who have mental health and health issues, behavioral health issues, have disabilities, homeless people, folks who are determined to not be in favor for no action or behaviors on their own. And so there are so many, they're already feeling unwelcome. Why would you say that it doesn't even merit a resolution? But I also believe it'll create headlines for Sonora. Can you imagine, what's the Union Democrat going to say? Well, it's Sonora has decided to say we reserve the right to refuse service to everyone. You are unwelcome here. And I also think it's going to have problems attracting new people to Sonora when the word gets out, what it's like for so many. It's going to affect businesses, tourists, cultural events, educational opportunities. This is not the kind, I can understand why it's tough to admit, that this is an issue, but there's no problem with admitting it. The problem is not doing something about it and denying its truth. And I just have to say, we've been doing a project with TCRC, and we've been talking to folks who are marginalized. And so at some point, we'll be ready to show the evidence for those who don't believe that exists. We have plenty of evidence. We're in the process of drafting a report now. But in the meantime, we've got evidence from the young people who've decided they don't want to call Sonora home anymore. They want to look for opportunity and more diverse community, more diverse opportunities someplace else. They say it was fine to grow up here, but they don't want to see it as part of their future. Another group that you might want to take a look at and ask them some questions. We've had some really wonderful folks recruited by the hospitals, the colleges, a lot of the professional organizations, going out looking for people who could add something to the workforce. And ask them why they left. Why didn't they stay in Sonora? What did they think was wrong with Sonora?
30 seconds.
Well, to get some answers, I looked at the city council and the values, and I didn't see anything that spoke to people. Tuolumne County actually has something that says that we want everyone to thrive and be happy and have an opportunity to have a good life in Tuolumne County. Didn't see anything in Sonora's except those things relating to administration and historic preservation and things like that. So I too will quote Martin Luther King. He said that men often hate each other.
The time's up.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so next is Jonathan's iPhone.
Hi there. Yes, thank you. My desire is to speak up for the things I hold dear, including values and systems that work. One of those systems is the nuclear family. The nuclear family is such an important part of our world, but it is in constant struggle because of a diminished understanding of its importance. 6 advantages of the nuclear family that are written about in an article, Advantages of the Nuclear Family by Dr. Topeka Taterway, are listed. These advantages are strength and stability, financial stability, consistency, which brings behavior success, encourages education, it brings health benefits, it brings communication skills, and connection to family during the aging process. I bring this perspective of the nuclear family up because the effort to bring social equity is building its position on the writings of a woman by the name of Peggy McIntosh. Her most famous paper is White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. In this article, she highlights her observations of white supremacy culture, 46 observations to be exact. My purpose today is to further disclose that the agenda behind targeting white supremacy culture as a social equity goal is not social equity, but an experiment to build a totally new social structure. Peggy McIntosh elevates this new social structure and specifically states the nuclear family as a fact to be lamented. This position of hers is a problem to me, as she believes the existence of nuclear family perpetuates white supremacy culture. Therefore, never will I support a committee that embraces white supremacy culture agendas. Any voice or movement that requires the abolishment of the nuclear family should be dismissed. Further, I cannot enable an effort promoting an experimental society rather than promote a known system that stimulates strength, stability, financial health, physical health, strong communication skills, and the support in the aging process, like the nuclear family provides. Also, in response to the aged giving voice tonight, only Hitler was threatened by the voice of the elderly. Their years of wisdom should be considered a strength and an opportunity for us to prevent making bad decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to Megan Mills.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Hello, City Council. Hello, members of the public. Thank you for taking my comment, and thank you for having this be an accessible meeting for people with chronic illness. Having it on Zoom allows me to attend this meeting. And I would just like to start by saying nothing I've heard here surprises me. It does break my heart. And I would also like to say, I would like to thank and offer support and gratitude to the people of social equity, especially the Black, Indigenous people of color who have put their heart and soul and lives on the line to do this important work. There's nothing about this work that should be threatening. Nobody's trying to disband the nuclear family. I'm afraid that's an institution that's around forever. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with any other family structure. But what continually troubles me is the inability of white people to understand that just because they don't experience something themselves or see something for themselves, that to acknowledge that it exists. So we've heard time after time after time comments saying, I don't see a problem. I've never seen this. I've lived here my whole life and I've never experienced this. Well, that is because you are white. That is because you don't have the issue of racial oppression. And this is not just about racial oppression. This is about acknowledging that there is oppression across systems. It is about acknowledging that there's a troubling history that we need to reckon with. And yes, there are wonderful things about the United States of America, and there are very troubling things about the United States of America, and I'm the first to say it. So I just want to end with a few questions that I wrote down from an author, Robin DiAngelo, just for us to ponder. She says, the racial status quo is comfortable for white people, and we will not move forward in race relations if we remain comfortable. The key to moving forward is what we do with our discomfort. We can see how large the discomfort of the white people who have spoke tonight is. Why does this unsettle me? What would it mean for me if this were true? How does this lens change my understanding of racial dynamics? How can my unease help reveal the unexamined assumptions I have been making? Is it possible that because I am white, there are some racial dynamics that I can't see? Am I willing to consider that possibility? If I am not willing to do so, then why not? And that is my question. Why are people so threatened by the work of this committee? Thank you for that. That they want to stop the work before it has been finished. We're not talking about a law. We're talking about a resolution to condemn racism in Tuolumne County. That should not be controversial. And the fact that it is, and that there's so much resistance and pushback, it proves the point of the need for a social equity committee in the first place, as someone else has stated tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Carly Fox. And real quick before Carly speaks, I noticed that there's a member of the public that has a hand raised, but that member of the public is actually in the council chambers now. So Darren Duez, if you put the hand down on, because there's no need for him to speak twice, I guess, if he's here. So just after we get done with this, he can speak. So caught me off guard there, sir. I apologize. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Carly.
Thank you, Matt. I want to just speak strongly in support of the really powerful and important critical work that the committee is doing. I was born and raised in Sonora. I was educated here. My parents are business owners. I love this community. I really love being from a small town. And like others have said, my heart feels broken tonight listening to the outrage and the fragility and inability to imagine what life might be like for people who are unlike you. I've also heard Jesus' name referenced many times, the Ten Commandments, the Bible. Although certainly we all know that our government, our Constitution is not rooted in Christianity. Our laws do not come from the Bible, do not come from the Ten Commandments. I do think it is an important and serious thing to claim to be a follower of Christ. I was raised in the Christian tradition. And so I would encourage all of us, especially those who are sitting with such discomfort in thinking about racism and thinking about the privileges that they might have, that they go back and read the words of Jesus, that they go back and read the Gospels and find time and time again, I know many people here identify as Christians, they know their Bibles well. Jesus stood with the marginalized over and over and over again. He spoke out against power structures, and he was not afraid of being persecuted for us. So I hope for those of us who are feeling discomfort tonight and anger, jealousy, whatever the different words that were thrown around are, that because so many of us in this community claim to be Christians, that we might also go back to our Bibles and back to the gospel and really think about how we can use the life of Jesus to find strength and to find power, and considering what life might be like in this community for those of us who are not in positions of power, for those of us who are not white like myself, who are not cisgender like myself, who are not middle class like myself, for those in the LGBTQ community, for those folks of color, to think about how can we be more Christ-like in making sure those people feel loved and welcomed and supported in our community. The work that the Social Equity Committee is doing is advancing that goal. So I just encourage us all to really think about who Jesus was. Although our government isn't rooted in the Bible for good reasons, we're not a
30 seconds.
theocracy. But I think that if we claim to be followers of Christ, we might really meditate on what that means. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Next is Alejandro.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I've decided to participate in this meeting, given the little bit that I've heard for about 30 minutes. Many comments made. I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Alejandro Abarca. I'm a Mexican-born American citizen. I've lived in Mexico for most of my teenage years and lived in the United States for most of my life. And there is this misconception, especially in the modern era, of what constitutes racism. And I just want to share a couple of stories briefly. While I was in Mexico, now I'm a 6'2", light complected Mexican. Most of my Mexican nationals are very short and they're of dark colored skin. So I was an outsider to them, and I experienced racism while I was there, probably much more frequently than I ever experienced it in the United States. My family and I moved here to Sonora from the Central Valley about 7 years ago, and I was told to be careful because there was a bunch of racists up here in the hills. I have yet to encounter anything like that, anything of the sort. And I think what's happening here is there is language that's being used in personal experiences of racism or victimhood type of experiences that are being used to make the argument that this Social Equity Committee is needed. At this point, there is established state and federal law that's already in place that makes it illegal for any type of racist type of activities that cover the gamut of things, thanks to the work of Martin Luther King and others. So I don't understand why we need such a committee to be implemented here locally. People are talking about stopping racism. Of course, there's an emphasis on the so-called Caucasian race. I'm of the mind that we are all members of the human race. And the faster we stop using this kind of language, the more unified we will be as a local community. I have many friends that are so-called Caucasians, and they're about the best people I've come to know, especially up here in the hills.
30 seconds.
So this concept that there's a bunch of racists running around is misguided, to say the least. And if we're going to discuss resiliency, if we really want resiliency in all of our communities, I have people in my family who are gay and lesbian. Matter of fact, my sister happens to be one of them. So to do away or create committees to try to stop racism and this type of behavior, it will never happen, people. We should be focusing on making people resilient to the judgments and behaviors
Time's up,
of,
sir.
that's true strength.
Individuals.
Thank you. Okay, next is, actually, did we want to keep in line with that since we had one that came to the council chambers? Is there an issue? We had, Darren was actually on the Zoom call, and then we actually had one. So should we just keep, he would have been next in line.
You're the mayor, you get to choose.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's treated fair and legally, so. Mr. Duez, why don't you come up and just, for everyone's information, he was on the Zoom call and he showed up here through the snow.
Hello all. I'm going to stick with, normally I irritate everybody and I'm going to do it again. Let's stick with tradition. I don't like to fail. We brought you guys an incomplete resolution, and I think it's really unfair to do that. Now, I don't agree with the way the committee's gone and the things that's gone off on the right, but bringing something incomplete. I keep hearing everyone on one side say, let's disband, let's get rid of it, and everyone on the other side say, we need this resolution. So why don't we put something in where we can get this resolution done? All we are is an advisory committee to you guys. You guys make the choice, yes or no, if it goes. I hate failing. I feel like doing this the way that we're doing it, I am failing. I don't like it. I don't agree with everything. I don't think we should be using the term white supremacy culture. Me and Clay have talked in depth about that, and it's something I don't like. To say that racism doesn't exist, Matt, you've seen it. You've seen me have to smack the crud out of someone for saying a word. I post things that irritate people sometimes just to do. If you go back into my Facebook and look, you better believe there's some that's going to be to everybody. That is not who I am. You know, I want to stand for Colette on this one. And normally, you know, we have great conversations privately, and we don't get to do that in the public view. Well, this situation is, why don't we get to finish our resolution the way that it is and send it to you guys, and you guys can decide then to change, because that's what it is. You guys are the ones that make the decisions. Give us 30 days, give us 60 days. Let's get our stuff in order, then we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is, Pablo.
Hi, thank you. So I think one of the main things that I'd like to just open up with is this idea of what is white supremacy culture, what is racism, right? And so when we were talking about racism in the county, we're talking about a white supremacy culture, we're talking about a social system in which white people enjoy structural advantages. Now you have people saying, well, we don't have that here. We don't see that. Yeah, if you are not hitting those roadblocks, if you're enjoying the advantages of that, you're not going to see that. If you're colorblind and somebody's showing you multicolored works and you say, I can't see that, that's a burden that falls on your side, right? And so let's talk about what those social systems are, what they have been, why they matter, right? People say, you know, there's laws that protect us, right? The 13th Amendment was passed in 1865, so that should have ended the abuse of Black people in the United States, right? The Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, right? So why do we need that when we had already abolished slavery 100 years earlier, right? Let's talk about all the different years of those systems and the accumulation of what happened, right? From the early 1900s to the 1980s, you had grandfather clauses, right? People of color couldn't buy houses, not just in all of the United States, right? But especially here in Sonora, in Modesto, in Amador, right? You had specific sections that would say you cannot sell this home to Chinese, to Mexicans, to, yeah, those are white supremacy culture systems, right? Those are things that we lived with until the late 70s, right? In the 1970s, Nixon's administration introduced a new strategy for political codification, right? They codified racism as a legitimate political strategy to unify the South and to recontrol certain aspects of what would later become the prison pipelines. In the 1990s, Americans with Disabilities Act finally passed, giving protection to Americans who had certain disabilities. In the 1990s, we had the Rodney King riots, right? In the 1909s, 1980s, we had forced sterilization in hospitals by institutions that use force and deception versus Mexicans versus non-English speaking individuals. Only in 2020 did we finally pass sexual orientation and gender identity protection, right? So those are the things that we're talking about. Those are things that have happened for over 300 years.
30 seconds.
Those are things that continue to happen. And those are things that even if you're not aware of them, even if you don't see them, that doesn't mean they're not there. That just means that you're not looking, right? So these are the reasons why we have these committees popping up all over the United States. We need them. We need to support them. We need to develop them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is John Lutzy. Was Karen? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, John. Karen, I apologize.
All right.
So, okay, I'll go. Thank you. So I've lived in Tuolumne County for over 25 years, and I've raised 4 children here. And 2 of my children are white and 2 of my children are Black. And the experience that my 4 children had here was different. There was a divide in how they were treated. Mayor Pro Tem and many of the people speaking tonight are trying to blame that divide on the Social Equity Committee. It's not that the Social Equity Committee created this divide. It's that people are just now starting to see the divide. But that divide has been here. I didn't sit in the parking lot of Safeway waiting for the truck with the Confederate flag to leave because of my white children, but I did because of my Black children. I didn't get called by the district attorney telling me to keep my white boys off the street, but I was told to keep my Black kids off the street because there had been active white nationalist activity and 2 Black men had been stabbed. My Black children experienced discrimination in the educational system, in the healthcare system, in the community. All 4 of my children experienced the love and the wonderfulness that this community has to offer. It is there, it exists. But my Black children lived on another side of a line than my white children in many situations. So to try to blame social equity for creating a divide that has been here, has been in our country for hundreds of years, simply because you're starting to see it for the first time, is not fair. It is here. People experience discrimination. People are hurting. People are afraid. My daughter, my Black daughter, does not want to come back to Tuolumne County because she doesn't feel safe here. That's not okay with me. So I support the social equity. We have work we have to do. We can be an amazing community. We have people here who want all of us to feel safe, but we can't do it by pretending it doesn't exist or trying to blame a group of people for creating a divide that's always been here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now John Lutzy.
Hi.
Sorry about that earlier.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be quick. I think my comment comes from a couple, 2 different places. One thing that I see, it seems in a conversation just tonight, and I've heard a lot of them since this committee has started, and I think it creates divisiveness that doesn't exist, is keep hearing this. If we're not for having a social equity committee, then we are racist or something. And I keep hearing that repeated tonight. And it's just, that causes a lot of unnecessary division when for people that are in no way racist. So that's one obvious thing I see dividing people with this committee. The other thing that I think is, I think the committee itself is not equal. It doesn't seem logical to me that what seems obvious to me is that there's two parties here. There's more of a Democrat, socialist political view and how they view and define these words like racism. And what's happening is you guys are giving that party a whole committee, which doesn't make sense when everyone else gets 3 minutes. So it seems like in the name of equity and equality, you can keep everybody to have equal time. I have my thoughts, my feelings. I get 3 minutes tonight. I get to tell you, and that's how I influence you. What you're doing is you have started this entire committee with its own political viewpoints that are in line with critical race theory and wealth redistribution, socialism, and some communist sympathizers. You're giving them a whole committee, and everyone else just gets 3 minutes. So I say, just on that point alone, in the name of equity and equality, that you would dissolve the committee and give everybody 3 minutes and have them get organized. God bless you. Go get organized, get all your people, put posters or whatever I want to do. That's how I do it. You do the same. You don't get a whole committee to influence every decision that the city makes. That's not equality or equity. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next, I believe, is Andrea Victoria. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm a newcomer. And while I support open civil discussion and believe everyone's entitled to opinion, it's important that everybody on the committee understand this exercise has been brutal. I echo those who've said just because you don't see racism doesn't mean it's not here and it doesn't exist. That's like saying the devil doesn't exist. Racism isn't always tangible. It's hidden, it's sneaky. Worrying about labels is a diversion that's overshadowing the impact to those who are affected. And this is about impact. There are people on the receiving end of this. I am one amongst countless others, the unseen, the unheard. And this is the work the Social Equity Committee needs to be allowed to continue to uncover, to address it. I'd like to leave you with just one thought. You cannot hold darkness and light at the same time. Let them finish their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that Mary Ann Schmidt?
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for this meeting. Thank you for having Zoom access for all of us as we stay home during a pandemic and a snowstorm. You have given us access to our democracy. Please notice what is happening tonight. We are talking as a community. We are having a conversation with all sides. I support the Social Equity Committee. This committee is what I call a caring committee. They care for the Sonora High student who had a swastika painted on her locker. They care for the mixed race couple that walked on a campus and the students threw food at them. They care for the person of color who was a customer and was forced to wait as he served others. They care for the person of color who was yelled at to go back home. Ironically, she was born here. So everything is not fine. So how do we move forward to resolve equity issues? A conversation must happen, and our government, our city government, has created a committee that allows for this conversation. So the conversation. Please support this committee so the conversation can help us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So it looks like the next one in line is Callahan's, but I want to make sure that it is a different, okay, just making sure. So Callahan's with an S on the end.
Oh, well, it's Callahan. So it's a different Callahan. But can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can now hear you.
Oh
It came
gosh,
across
I'm
kind
so
of weird.
sorry. Matt, I think a Bluetooth in my house picked up where like my kids were like running around. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I closed myself in my room and then picked up Bluetooth in the different part of the house. Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Yes, it is very snowy out there, so it is nice to be able to get on here for a chance to speak to you all. I have a few things to say on this issue. I believe that the people who are speaking out who are in favor of dissolving the Social Equity Committee are not blind to the fact that racism exists. I, for one, along with other people, are concerned with what kind of influence the committee would have on city decisions. I would urge you to dissolve the committee based on that alone. Since we have federal and state laws that prohibit discrimination based on race, I don't see the need to have a social equity committee that is influencing city decisions. Just like a lot of other committees and groups, you know, we have various different groups and committees in town that are for social activism, for just different things that you believe in or that you're wanting to make change. There's groups of people who meet. I don't think that the Social Equity Committee needs to be something that is officially influencing city decisions. Also, on a personal note, I've lived in this county my whole life. I am Native American. I am actually a tribal member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. I'm an enrolled member, as are all four of my children. And I am not saying this to discredit people who have experienced discrimination. But I have not experienced discrimination in our town. Specifically being brown or Native American. And I would just like to say that I feel like Chwami County has been a very loving and inclusive place to grow up. So I thank you for your time and appreciate this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Yolanda.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Bear with me, I've had a migraine all day, but I have the need to speak because I am a Mexican-born citizen. I'm just like my husband. We did move it over here in 2015, and we were warned about the fear of all this and all that. But my mom, she loves America. America gave her 7 children what Mexico could not. And I get so upset hearing that yes, there's racism everywhere. There's been racism all my life, but you work hard and you achieve. And that's what America has done for me and all my brothers and sisters, who, by the way, would have not gone into college had it not been for affirmative action. America is the country that has done the most to fight racism than any other country by putting laws into effect. And she said, my mother, always work hard and you will achieve. And we have. We have. The fact that people will say a thing or two, it's not the community. It is not systemic racism. There's so many things that already exist to fight that. We need to, as parents, we need, as a community, we need to make our children resilient. That my children are Mexican. My son is named Ignacio. His nickname is Nacho. And I named him that knowing that he was going to have, maybe people with issues, but I'm raising him as a strong little boy who he's going to be secure in himself. Then when he encounters racism, he's going to say, that is their problem, not mine, because he is amazing. And you know what? That's what my mom taught me. And as I work hard and I achieve and I get, I don't even deal with that issue. We cannot be focused on that. And this committee is going to focus on that. And this, coming from I have a master's in finance, and I am a very frugal person. And I do not think that our money is well spent on a committee like that. Like Mr. Luzzi said, it is a waste of time and a waste of money to have a community in the ear of those that make decisions that is biased. And I will not stand for that. And I say that that committee needs to be dissolved. It's focusing on the wrong thing. You need to focus on strengthening our children, on making them strong as to who they are, and not focus on, oh, you're this color, you're that color, you're bisexual, you're this and that, and you're going to be discriminated against. That's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Pat.
Hi, I've been a member of the Motherlode Martin Luther King Committee for 19 years. And in fact, the Motherlode Martin Luther King Committee wrote a letter to the Sonora City Council a year and a couple months ago in support of the Social Equity Committee. It's, a lot of people have invoked the name of Martin Luther King this evening. And his I Have a Dream speech from 1963, 5 years before his assassination, when he said that he wants his children to be able to be judged not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. In fact, if you read on to some later speeches of Martin Luther King, and I have read a lot of his work, encourage people to read his speeches. They're incredibly powerful. He said that was aspirational. He didn't feel that we are anywhere near having people be judged apart from the color of their skin. He totally recognized that racism in this country is systemic. It's in housing, it's in jobs, it's in all the many areas that have been mentioned. And he was a movement leader. His thing was to get people to work against racism, to work against things that oppress poor people. And in fact, when he was killed, he was organizing the Poor People's March in Washington, which was across all races. It was whites, Native Americans, Latinos, etc. So here, in the wake of George Floyd's killing in 2020, people protested all over this country for the next several months. The great majority of those protesters were white. They were white people. And they were saying no more racism in our country.
30 seconds.
2 young women organized a protest here. It's quite well attended in June of 2020. And let me say quickly, Martin Luther King was accused of being a communist. He was accused of being a socialist. Those words have no place in our vocabulary today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is BZ Smith. BZ had spoken
Thank
public
you.
comment.
I've heard so many different thoughts and curious interpretations of the people that have been attending the meetings and even the structure of the meetings that understand what's going on. And by the way, my internet is very unstable. So if I disappear, you'll know it's the snowstorm. So I've tried to attend as many of the social equity committee meetings as I can. And what I have seen with that committee group is it is responding to the needs that have been here all along. It's been actions. It's been a chance for people to express their views in the limited time that they have in the public comment section. And then the committee members themselves go on to conduct the response to those comments, to conduct the function of creating an advisory statement that will be brought to the board and to you, the council, and then you, the council, will either ratify or change or whatever if that committee is, if the statement ever gets to you. I'm so grateful that Darren Duaz recommended that the committee has an opportunity to complete the work. How can anybody ever say is doing a valuable service if they can't even bring their final document to you, or at least get to that point? I'm trying really hard to be succinct. I'm not doing a good job of it, but I just want to share a couple of things of my own eyewitness. I have a nephew who's of mixed race. He's come to visit me a few times and we've gone around town. He feels very uncomfortable when he's here. He doesn't particularly feel safe. At one time he was going to move here, but he told me recently, no, I can't live up there. I wouldn't feel comfortable there. And that made
I think we lost
me very, very sad, but that was his
30 seconds.
experience. A few years ago, there was a young Black woman who was a reporter for the Union Democrat, incredibly intelligent woman. She would get sneers and jeers every now and then, but she was tough. But one day she was physically assaulted on Green Street in the daytime behind the Union Democrat. Shortly after that, she resigned and moved away.
Hey, Lizzie, your time is up.
That broke my heart. I marched right into Cervantes where he had gone, and we started
Lizzie,
talking
your
about
time is
this,
up.
and I didn't want to see that shirt because it is an insult to the values of this country, an insult to the values of the sacrifice that my father and so many other World War II veterans made.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. She may have not been able to hear me. Okay, so next is Mercedes.
Thank you, Matt. So I want to speak today as a homeowner, taxpayer, professional. I have a teacher credential and a certification in environmental and health education. And I just want to say a couple of things. One, what this time has showed to all of us is that this community is hungry for connection, for conversations, for civil discourse. This is exactly how local democracy happens. And it is not a contest about who is right and who is wrong. It is about coming together and finding common ground. It is not about Democrats and Republicans. It is not about conservatives and liberals. It is about us, the community. And I want to share a little story with you. A few days ago, I was speaking with an elder, a Native American elder, and he was recounting with tears in his eyes that when he was a young man standing in front of a bar on Tuolumne Road that still exists there, Steve's Bar, there was still a sign that said, no natives, not Mexicans, and no dogs. We are talking about citizens of this community that has been hurt over the years. And those wounds need to be healed. And this is how we heal, having conversations where we listen to one another. And that is something that the Social Equity Committee has brought up. The opportunity for people to speak up, the opportunity for say what they think. We don't need to agree in everything. And I also want to say that in the 22 years that I have been here, I have served as an advocate and interpreter for the nursing homes, hospital, schools, for people that have suffered discrimination over the years. Please consider how important this is for the community, not what one or two members of the city council might think, but for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Claire.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you so much. Hopefully I'm the last person to speak, and I just want to give some congratulations. The committee has done phenomenal work. I've tried to sit in on meetings as often as I can, and I do appreciate being able to attend by Zoom, because it would be difficult to go out at night and to go out with COVID. So the committee, I believe the committee was appointed and by members of the board, and that they are unpaid. I don't believe that the committee itself is engendering any cost to the city. And you know, if I'm misspeaking, please let me know. I think that the greatest gift that the committee has given to me is that as a privileged white woman, because I have an education and I have money and I have housing and I have plenty to eat, as a privileged woman, I have learned so much from this committee's work. I've had to look at myself and my own biases, and they've been very uncomfortable. I was raised in Stockton, and the biases that I learned just by being a member of the community are profound. But I didn't think that I had any biases, and I didn't think that I was ever going to be someone who would be prejudiced. But the committee has really helped me look at that, and I'm so grateful for that. I just think the work is so important, and I want to also thank one person on the committee before I cease speaking, and that's Darren Duez. And I am so impressed, Darren, with your integrity, with the fact that even though I've watched you speak, and I know that you don't always agree, but you said you would do a job, and now you're doing it. And I'm just proud of you. So thank you all for doing the work that you've been doing, and please do not disband this very, very important committee. It's helping so many of us in ways that you couldn't possibly know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Cody Opie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, good. So first of all, hearing a lot about either side of wanting to keep this and not wanting to keep it. I gotta side with my belief of this equity committee. I mean, we see them rising all over the nation, and They're not actually just staying as, oh, we're just trying to keep this safe and we're just trying to make sure people are getting this even fair share. There's already stuff in place for that. You know, there's laws against racism stuff. There's laws against hating on trans people. There's laws against all these things. All this stuff can be taken up with the police departments. And I can tell you firsthand, growing up here and being multiple generations here, you can go talk to anybody. And I almost bet you 90 to 199% of them would go with you and say, who said what to you? Let's go call them out on it. Why would they say that? Everybody wants to condemn a whole community for such a minority amount of people, just a little amount of people that are just playing out jackass. You know, the fact that, you know, saying people couldn't buy homes because they were of color. Way back in the day, that was everywhere. You're in California, people. This is Sonora in California, not Sonora in Georgia. Okay. The fact that that is even being talked about, that they couldn't buy a house because they were color. People like green money. They don't really care what your nationality is, especially in 2022. They don't care if you're dark complected, Asian, anything. They just want to sell their home if they want to sell their home. That's it. They don't want to barter. They just want their price dollars. You know, people leaving town because of racism. You know, kids aren't all leaving town because of racism. A lot of kids are leaving town because this town doesn't have much to offer other than just retirement homes. It is turning into a destination for everybody that retires out of the Bay or LA or anywhere else in the nation. And they just want to, they love Sonora. They want to come here and retire and have an easygoing life. And they don't want to hear the bars. So what happens? They shut down different bars. So then there's only a few places for kids to hang out. So they leave. The colleges, they got curfews and stuff at the college in town. So they're not even allowed to be up hanging out, having a few beers with their friends of age. This is all just crap. The fact that we're still talking racism in 2022, that most everybody agrees that yes, it's here, but it's not everywhere. And we all don't agree with the racism. I just don't think we need a committee to constantly hinder everything else in town. You lose a job because, well, I'm sorry, but this company's owned by Hispanic or Black or Native American, and they deserve it because, you know, you white people get too much. I just think we need to go off the character of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sabine Tichler.
Good morning, or I guess not good morning, excuse me. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I want to express my support for the Social Equity Committee. In trying to disparage, let me start over. In the support for the Social Equity Committee, we've heard people bring up the good that it's doing. We've heard committee members clarify their positions. We've had them reassure audience members that that no one's being called a racist or a blanket statement is being passed. On the other hand, we've heard many attempts at fear-mongering and other type of propaganda regarding the Social Equity Committee, and using those as reasons to dissolve it. Using false information, disinformation is not a wise choice, just because it sets a dangerous precedent. Furthermore, like when it comes to racism in this county, we do have a number of active far-right, authoritarian, and white nationalist organizations operating out of Tuolumne County. We have the Golden State Hammerskins, a neo-Nazi organization. We have the Proud Boys, which have been recruiting in our town the last month because they view it as a safe place for them to recruit in. So that says a lot about the atmosphere of Tuolumne County if the Proud Boys feel safe recruiting amongst our citizens. We have the state of Jefferson, who's at least this branch of it, whose president and other members are deeply entrenched in white nationalist beliefs. We have 3%ers, Oath Keepers, and a number of other far-right paramilitary groups. So to say that it doesn't exist here is absurd. It's just a factually wrong statement. And we
30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I'm just gonna leave it at that, I think. Y'all have a nice evening.
Thank you. Okay. I guess that's two words put in one. Tom Crosby.
Yeah, thank you. So it's been a long evening for everyone. I realize that. There's been lots of views expressed on both sides, and I think I got to hear most of them. I had to step away for another meeting, but I'm back now. I'd just like to say that, I think the Social Equity Committee has invested a significant amount of time and effort in drafting the resolution. And we should commend every citizen that steps forward with passion and energy, asserting their views and insights and engaging in this discussion. I think that's very helpful. All of the views are helpful if they're being honest and getting it out there so that we can deal with it. The resolution describes past wrongs and indicates that our community continues to be deficient in how we treat Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQ plus citizens. It also promotes views as to how we might move forward together, which I think is very important. The draft resolution is also speaking beyond the city to all 54,000 of us associated with Sonora, including those in the community that are negatively impacted by social inequities. Having the draft resolution in hand, a next logical step in my mind is to do something constructive with it. Having the draft, I know it's not complete. So it would have been great to have completed this work over so many months, but I've watched the process. I've participated to some degree, supplying some inputs here and there. And I recognize the attention and the work that the committee has invested in this. I'd suggest that it's whether you do something with the Social Equity Committee this evening or not, I would suggest a logical next step and something for the city council to discuss the merits of forming a community-based group, maybe outside of the city government, outside of county government, but a city group to carry on the work accomplished by this Social Equity Committee, survey our negatively impacted persons, assess their experiences and needs, and engage the remainder of our community in addressing specific deficiencies that we may have discovered there. So I can think of no better outcome than for our oppressed and disadvantaged neighbors and friends.
Time's up, Tom.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Tristan Siliata.
Thank you. The purpose of the committee is to investigate and determine whether or not there is continuing inequity based upon the historical inequity that founded Sonora, where the land was expropriated and the natives were subjected to a genocide for generations. And what they're disclosing is just the history of what has transacted, how Sonora, how the how the Mexicans, who were really quick when the gold happened, to get up to Sonora and Colombia and take charge, and then the Anglo-Americans came up and took over. And then California came into being. And Anglo-Americans became the dominant society, and the others were excluded. But that's just the history. That doesn't despoil where we are right now. I guess that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone else. Okay. So, and I don't believe there's anyone else out in the audience. It looks like, would you like to come up, sir?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I think you guys are too damn serious around here. You guys need like a you need like a music or something, you know, people relax or something. I don't know, but because you see, I have been discriminated, but you know, it makes me even better, you see. You check all the check marks. I'm poor, I'm black, I mean, every check mark you can think of, I qualify. But you can't bring me down. It's not gonna happen, you see. So the only maybe advice I have is when you guys after your it's all said and done, make sure you don't go too far over that way. Because now you were over here. Now when you make your changes, make sure you know it's somewhere in the middle, you know? Because if you go way too far, then you're gonna alienate other people too. So just try to be, you know, reasonable. That's the only thing I can say. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity and you not bringing me down. It's very happy. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was cool. Okay, so I don't see anyone else. No one in the audience. Okay, so we're going to bring this back to the council. And then I know that Councilmember Garaventa had to get on the phone. I believe he's still here. I just want to make sure that he's still here. So is Councilmember Garaventa there? Jim Garaventa. Yeah, the reason I was asking, there's one that says iPhone, there's one that says guest. So, and with any decision with him not being here, I think it's important to include him. So, I did earlier. So now, Doug, I'll ask, since you're the city attorney, we could possibly continue this, but it basically starts this process over again. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So you could continue the item and after closing public comment, which means when you bring it back, you would not need to necessarily take public comment again. There might be some level of pressure to accept public comment, but additional public comment, but you've been given the opportunity so you could continue the item with public comment closed and hear it at the
Okay.
next time if you wanted. That would be one option.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm doing everything legally correct, but also morally correct. And the public has obviously spoke for a while. So yeah. So I want to make sure, you know, we're doing what's morally correct. I'll be honest with the rest of the council. I don't think we should continue if Jim is not on this. I think that would be the right thing to do. It could have a split. Like I said, I've got my 2 cents, and um, so so Mhm. Melissa, would you try calling Jim? Okay.
So why don't we take a,
Yeah,
Mayor,
let's
could
take
we
a
take a
5-minute
2-minute break?
break.
But could we make very clear that public comment is closed at this
Yes.
point in time? And so both on Zoom and in person, so a public comment has been taken and it would be closed at this point.
For for new business item number 8.
Correct. Yep.
Yes. For the weather. It's okay. Okay, so calling it back at 8:20. I don't know if it's the weather, what's going on. So for some reason, Councilmember Garaventa is not on the Zoom call. So what I think would be best to do, because again, I think something this serious and this many people spoke about, Jim needs to be included on this. So what we're going to do is table item number 8 till the next meeting. And due to that, we've already had a lot of public comment. Thank you, everyone. And I want to say especially thank you for everyone being so respectful. Everything went so much easier, so much better. Everyone was respectful. I do want to ask our city attorney, basically the whole thing with public comment, because essentially we're going to table this one, and then I'm going to ask the council to table the other two. But
We're going to continue the other one.
yeah, continue the other two, but we're going to table this one. And when we put it on the next agenda's meeting, we're not going to be asking for public comment because all the public comment was done on this particular one.
Yeah, to be clear, everybody in the public and on Zoom has had an opportunity to speak. Public comment has been closed. It's been brought back to the council because of weather conditions and because of Councilmember Garaventa having connection issues or unavailability. It would be continued to the next meeting, but there would be no public comment, no further public comment on this item taken once this item is reopened at the next meeting.
Yes. Thank you. So, okay, so everyone's cool on the council with tabling this one? Okay, or continuing, sorry, continuing. I'm starting to get a headache, so. Okay, so we will do that, and then I'm asking the council, just because of the weather and everything, items number 9 and 10, actually, and then of course we got monthly reports.
I think we're talking about the rest of the agenda, just continue.
Yes. So I'd just like to continue the rest of the agenda to a warmer time when there's not snow on the ground. Everyone's cool with that? Yes. Okay. Yeah, and both y'all live on the hill, so I just got to go down the hill a little bit. Yes. We appreciate that, Chris. So with that, did the council members or department heads want to say anything? Otherwise, we can just continue this to the next meeting. Okay. Excellent. So, Chief Vanderweel. Heck yeah.
Sorry about that, but there's a time element to this. I just wanted to announce that this coming Saturday is the Special Olympics polar plunge for Tuolumne County. Getting it ready, so it should be nice and cold because we don't want to waste our time out there. But 1 o'clock at Lake Tulloch. Come jump in, join the Sonora Police Department team. Yeah. You can also register online as a chicken and just register and but our goal this year was to raise $1,500 as the Sonora Police Department team, and we raised $2,000 so far, which is good. And I saw Councilmember Such and Segerston both on there supporting the team, so thank you very much for that. And anytime we reach our goal, I agree to jump in fully uniform. So that's going to happen again. So this will be the third time. Yeah. Now I leave my belt on. The only thing I take out the equipment because I don't want to.
Oh, good.
That'd be cheating. So anyway, for the rest of council and the public, there's still an opportunity to log on to the Polar Plunge, Northern California, Tuolumne County, and find a way to donate to help raise money for this this great cause. If you haven't worked around these athletes, it's quite a rewarding thing to do. So hope to see all of you out there. And I believe Melissa said she registered as a chicken, but I think she's going to jump in. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, my wife is looking at me like I should go and jump in. I'm a little afraid. Yeah, I'm really afraid right now. Okay, so anyone else? Chris, Chief New? Okay, Melissa? Okay. And then Jim's not on here. Mark?
The children's mask demonstration was great. Lots of enthusiasm and interested parties. Nice to see so many young kids getting interested in the political, well, politics and influencing their community. So that was good.
Okay. Just answering a question I got asked earlier. I guess that was directed at you and then me. I do attend a lot of meetings. My other council members, they're fine talking with them, and I think that's great. Anyone has any questions can always call me. Pat, I've had a great conversation with you on the phone before. Well, part of it wasn't that great, but we ended it really good. And she is a valued member of the community. So if there's ever any questions of meetings or groups or anything else I'm a part of, I have no problem talking about them. I just, I can talk for hours and ramble on, and then my wife is hitting me with stuff. So with that, I will close the meeting at 8:27 p.m. and I want to thank everyone and be safe out there.